3 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
To infinity and beyond.
He's live. He's nationwide. This is the Zach Gelb Show. Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
Live from the palatial yet not overly ostentatious studios of the Infinity Sports Network here in beautiful New York City, sitting on top of the 10th floor of 345 Hudson Street. Welcome on in to what is a Tuesday edition of the Zach Gelb Show across all of our local Infinity Sports Network affiliates, Sirius XM, Channel 158, the free Odyssey app, and of course, streaming live on YouTube. 855-212-4227 is the number to jump on in. 855-212-4227. You could always get at me on Instagram, where I'm straight flexing, or via the good old cesspool of Twitter, X, at Zach Gelb. That's ZACHGELB. I got Moist Mike. I got Stuart Kovacs along the other way. We are rocking and rolling all the way up until 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific time. You know, I've been at a lot of games, and last night I was at Lincoln Financial Field for Eagles-Falcons. And I'm not going to say I've never seen a comeback like that because I was at 28-3, and I have been in the building when you think a game is over, and then a team slowly mounts a comeback, and then you walk out of the building if you're on the winning side of it, elated, and if you are on the losing side of it, just absolutely down in the dumps. But last night, being in that building at Lincoln Financial Field with over, a minute 40 left, whatever it was, under 2 minutes left is how I should say it, and the Eagles are lining up for a 3rd and 3, I would have never thought, even only in a 3-point game, when the Falcons had no timeouts, they had no ability to stop the clock, I would have never thought that in about 2 minutes later, I would have been walking out of Lincoln Financial Field where the Falcons would have got an improbable victory and the Eagles would have gagged one away. I would have never thought that. And the first part is, we'll get to the Sirianni decision. I'll actually defend it in a second. But the Atlanta Falcons, I know this may sound premature to some because you're going to say, Zach, it's 2 weeks into the season. But with having the Kansas City Chiefs in week 3, already losing week 1 to the Pittsburgh Steelers, let me be abundantly clear. Kirk Cousins and the Atlanta Falcons last night saved their season. Because if they start the year off 0-2, and Kirk even admitted after the game, he's clearly not 100%. He is clearly not fully healthy coming off the Achilles injury. If they would have started off 0-2, putting them in a spot where you have to beat the Chiefs in week 3, or else you're going 0-3, would have been absolutely miserable. So now Atlanta could breathe a little bit. But we start with the Eagles today because something is just off with the Philadelphia Eagles. And it's been that way even when they were 10-1 to start the season. I sat here right in front of this microphone and I said, folks, they haven't even played their best brands of football yet, and they're still finding a way to win games. So just wait until the Philadelphia Eagles play their best brand of football. And ever since I said that, when they were 10-1 last year, this team has been a complete and utter embarrassment. They had one win down the stretch after starting 10-1. That is nearly impossible to do. I don't know what's tougher to do. Blow the game the way that they blew the game last night, or be 10-1 a year ago and only have one lousy freaking win down the stretch. So, we get to last night. When I'm sitting there in the stadium and I see them lining up 3rd and 3 with a minute 40 left, and I knew that the Falcons had no more timeouts, I will admit, I never thought in a million years, even with how aggressive Nick Sirianni and Kellen Moore can be, I never would have thought for a second they were throwing the football. I thought they were going to run it. I thought they were going to chew off about 40 seconds of the clock, and then they're up by 6, and you give the ball back to Atlanta, and you know for a minute, maybe even less, you have to keep the Falcons out of the end zone. And if you keep them out of the end zone, you win the game. You start your season out to a 2-0 start for the Philadelphia Eagles. So, when Jalen Hurts rolls out to the right, I didn't even think they were going to throw it at first. And I'm like, okay, maybe this is a design run with Jalen Hurts. You roll out to the right. If he doesn't see anything, he just falls down, right? And then you kick the field goal and you let the clock run. I thought maybe they were getting cute. But then you see Saquon Barkley wide open, and he would have got the first down. And Jalen Hurts put the ball right in the breadbasket of Saquon Barkley, and he drops the ball. So I understand it would be easy for yours truly to get in front of this microphone. It'd be easy for any host on this network to get in front of the microphone and smash the low-hanging fruit of Kellen Moore and Nick Sirianni and call them idiots, call them morons, and call them dopes. Why didn't they just run the football? But the bottom line is, even though I thought they should have run the ball, the play call actually was set up to work if Saquon Barkley, who is the new highly paid back in the NFL, could have just simply caught the ball. The play call needed to be executed correctly. And it wasn't like it was an impossible play call to execute. Saquon is right there. Saquon had two hands on the football, and he dropped it. I don't usually like to say this because it's something where I don't want to put a talk show host thinking that, or a producer thinking that they could do something that an NFL player couldn't do. But if you put Moist Mike out there to the right side and you had him wide open and Jalen Hurts threw the football and it hit him in his hands, if Mike couldn't catch that, then that's a problem. Let alone Saquon Barkley. You got to catch the ball. I don't care afterward Jordan Renan telling me how many drops Saquon Barkley's had in his career and how it's been a problem the last few seasons. Catch the freaking ball. You catch the ball. You are the hero. Nick Sirianni's a genius. Kellen Moore is a genius. And the Eagles are 2-0. And the game is over. Over. It's that simple. And quite frankly, before I get in front of the microphone and start crushing and lambasting Sirianni and Moore for the play call to throw the ball and Saquon Barkley, who was wide open to catch the ball, you know, before I crush that play call, there's a bunch of other things you could crush. Number one, that loss last night's on Saquon. Catch the ball. Afterwards, so they have to settle for a field goal in that spot. They go up by 6. There's a minute 40 left. How many defensive coordinators are the Eagles going to bring in? You know, there was a problem with Sean Desai. There was a problem with Jonathan Gannon. There was a problem with Matt Patricia. Vic Fangio, everyone loves him. Vic Fangio deserves to be crushed today. Because that defense last night allowed Kirk Cousins, who's allergic to primetime games, march right down the field in 70-yard fashion in a minute. And the Falcons offense, who basically did nothing all night, was a hot knife through butter when they needed a touchdown and they needed to go up by 7 because it was a 6-point deficit, and they walked right down the field like a breeze in the park. They just went quickly right down the field. 70 yards in a minute. So Saquon catch the ball. Defense show up for the Philadelphia Eagles. And then also, even after the defense projectile vomited all over the place, you get the ball back only needing a field goal to win the game. Jalen Hurts in week 1 had some crappy, and I mean crappy decision-making. You know, he made some terrible decisions against the Green Bay Packers. You just completed a pass. 27 seconds left. You're at your own 43. And you don't have a crappy kicker. Jake Elliott's one of the finest kickers in the league. You don't need to make an all-or-nothing play and make a kind of Brett Favre type of play, even though Brett Favre's a Hall of Famer, where it's an ill-advised throw. You need to live to see another down. You need to live to see another play. Throw the ball away if you don't have anything there. There's 27 seconds. In this game, that was an eternity. And you're at your own 43. You don't need to move the ball that much further, maybe 30 yards most, to get Jake Elliott in a comfortable field goal position. So those 3 things I will crush, and I have a 4th, before I crush Sirianni and Moore for the decision to throw the ball last night. Once again, Saquon catch the ball. Once again, defense. Eagles defense. Can anyone have a pulse on that defense? In a minute, you allow old man Kirk Cousins, who's not even healthy, to go 70 yards down the field. Jalen Hurts, live to see another down. You throw a pick with 27 seconds left. You just need a field goal, and you save everybody's ass. Instead, you throw an interception when you snap the ball from your own 43. And finally, this goes back to the early part of the game. I'm sick and tired of all these analytics. Do the analytics ever tell you to just take the points? Do they always tell you to go for it? Because think about it. If the Eagles took the points in the first half, the 3 field goals on what I think was the first or second drive of the game, it's 4th and 4. You're at the Falcons 9. Kick the field goal. Your offense doesn't have A.J. Brown. Your offense isn't a full go. And instead, the Eagles, who have their heads shoved up their you-know-whats, go, oh, yeah, we're going to go for it. And they didn't get it. Imagine if they had those 3 points, and I know it's tough to do this, but imagine if they have those 3 points at the end of the game. Guess what? You kick that field goal after the Saquon Barkley drop, you go up by 9 instead of 6, and then the game is over. Turn out the lights. The party's over. So that is a terrible, and I mean a putrid, and I mean a pathetic performance by the Philadelphia Eagles. But guess what? This is who the Eagles are. The Eagles have been one big fat joke since they were 10-1. They were 10-1, and they won one game down the stretch. And to start off the season, whoop-de-damn-do, you beat the Packers in Brazil, and then you follow it up against the Atlanta Falcons when Kirk Cousins isn't even close to 100%. You have the game literally won. And then you said, oh, let me reach into the jaws of victory and just snatch out defeat, and you saved the Falcons season. Oh, my. That was a stunning, and I mean a stunning occurrence. I was at the game last night. I had 6 people that were sitting next to me that were season ticket holders that pay a lot of money for those seats. And guess what? With 2 minutes to go, they said, let's beat the traffic. This game's over. I want to know what those 6 people, how they found out about last night's result. It was like I walked out of the link and you just saw a blank stare on Eagles fans because that was a party. You know, C.J. Gardner-Johnson, welcome back. Who cares that you trashed the fans when you left? Welcome back to Philadelphia. You make the stop, the big hit, boom, on Bijan Robinson. And the Eagles lose that game. Saquon Barkley, who the Eagle fan, right, wanted to rub the Giants fans' face into the ground last week and in the dirt when he had 3 touchdowns in Brazil. And I get it, the Giant fan, you know, they could have some pride too. Because last night, like the Sean Marashes of the world, celebrating that performance as if that's the Giants Super Bowl, for crying out loud. How pathetic the Giants are and how bunch of bums they are this year. They can't even beat the Commanders. All right? You can't even beat the Commanders. All a guy like Sean Marash has to live for right now is Saquon Barkley to suck. And Saquon gets a nice pop from the crowd before the game. They barely used him on the first drive. And then guess what? The game is there. Sirianni and Moore go, let's be aggressive. Let's end the game. You could hate the decision. The play was set up to succeed. Saquon Barkley. You know, maybe you take a line out of the movie The Replacements. You need to go do something with an elephant. You know, those hands need to get sticky. Catch the ball. All you needed to do was catch the ball. You catch the ball, and Eagles fans are happy. And it probably covers up where this team is at. But this team is at 1-1. The NFC has been a disaster. You know, we're talking, I have to do my Take 5 Wednesday tomorrow. What, the Vikings and the Saints are going to be in the top 5? Are you kidding me? The Niners, rough start. The Lions, rough start. And the Eagles, you could have been sitting at 2-0. But instead, you were a bunch of losers. And that's what the Eagles have been since starting out 10-1. A bunch of losers. So don't tell me, oh, everything's going to be all right. Oh, everything's going to be fine. Don't worry, the Eagles will figure it out. They better figure it out, because if not, whether you agreed or disagree with the play call last night, Nick Sirianni, you're going to get fired. And Jalen Hurts, come on. They paid you. Live to see another down. You cannot throw that interception. That was the easiest interception of Jesse Bates' career. Jeez, that was terrible. And you know what? I had the Eagles on the money line. I had the money line with an odds boost. There was someone sitting next to me last night. They had the same thing. They took the same thing on FanDuel. And we're sitting there saying, oh, thank God we didn't take the spread at 6.5 when they're lining up to take the field goal. No one thought the Eagles were going to lose that game. Think about that. How improbable it is for the Falcons, who can't win a big game, to save their lives. They can't. Kirk Cousins is allergic to a primetime spot. Allergic! And he ends up winning the game. I'm not going to sit here. It's a good win for the Falcons. But the take today is not to slap the Falcons on the behind and go, oh, Atlanta. Oh, Atlanta. What a win for the Falcons. You're a great team. Nonsense. This is bash, 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 bash. The trash that we've seen from the Eagles since they started 10-1 a year ago. Because they've been trash. Absolute trash since they started 10-1. It is the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. I only bet $40 in the game last night. Imagine if I threw like $1,000 on it. I don't know how some people bet that much. All righty, we'll take a timeout. 16 after the hour. What's your reaction to the play call at the end of the Eagles game? Do you have an issue with it, or you like me, where there's a lot of other blame to go around before you could bash the play call? 855-212-4227. 855-212-4227. It is the Zach Gelb Show right here on the Infinity Sports Network. Football is back, and what better way to celebrate than winning some cash with Sleeper Picks? Sleeper Picks is a fantasy game, but you can win real money. Just pick more or less than at least 2 player stats. If your picks are right, you win. You can pick up to 8 players who win up to 100 times your money. And Sleeper has a couple huge offers to kickstart the football season. For new users, Sleeper will match your first deposit with up to $100 credit to your account. If you've already played, Sleeper's got discounted player projections for you every week of the season. So download the Sleeper app now and use promo code SCORE, and your first deposit will be doubled with the credit up to $100. What are you waiting for? Download Sleeper today and use code SCORE for a credit up to $100 match on your first deposit. That's code SCORE. Must be 18 years in most states and state where it is legal. Promo code and other restrictions apply. Visit sleeper.com. Please wager responsibly. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-426-2537 for help. Paid for by Blitz Studios.
You're in a 4-minute break. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. 1 minute remaining. "45 seconds remaining. "30 seconds remaining. "15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
You're listening to the Infinity Sports Network.
Alrighty, this is Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. So, Darren Carr, is he David Carr's brother, I'm assuming? You know, we know Derek Carr. I don't know if Darren Carr is also related to David and Derek Carr. I'm assuming so. Not that followers equate to who you're related to, but the guy does have 18,000 followers on X. And he tweeted out, I guess during the game on Sunday night, the Chicago Bears should be fined for allowing this to be his offensive line when talking about Caleb Williams. So David Carr quote tweeted it, and this game, remember, was in NRG Stadium. That's where David Carr started his career with the Houston Texans and got beat around like he was a piñata at a kid's birthday party. In this stadium as well, giving me flashbacks, I'd also add this. His protection schemes are being exposed as well. Bad combination. That's on the coaching staff. So the coaching has not been up to par in Chicago. The offensive line hasn't been anywhere close up to par. And I'll go back to something that Merrill Hodge said last week. And Merrill Hodge, to his credit, he was critical of Caleb Williams and explained why he didn't believe in Caleb Williams as his generational talent before the draft. This is not just piling on after 2 starts, which were extremely underwhelming. But Merrill Hodge told us after game 1, just watch him in the pocket. He does not have the awareness in the pocket right now, and his footwork is no good. And that was on display on Sunday night up against the Texans. And the crazy part is, and it's probably more so because the Texans couldn't finish a drive to save their life in that game on Sunday night, but Caleb Williams still had a chance to go win the game late. I think the score was like 19-13, something along the lines of that. So you look at Caleb Williams, and it's going to make me ask this question. Should the Chicago Bears, since this is a long-term plan for Caleb Williams, and Caleb Williams is deemed as the guy that is the face of your franchise, finally the Bears have a franchise quarterback, and he's your long-term answer, even though it would be wildly unpopular, should the Chicago Bears say, Tyson Bagent or whoever, we're going to put you under center because we didn't fix this offensive line the way that we thought, and we want to protect our Ferrari. So we're not looking in 2 years from now, oh, Caleb Williams goes down the road of an Andrew Luck or other guys that just had to suffer a ridiculous amount of injuries because the talent around them wasn't good enough. And I understand when people hear that, they're going to say, why even ask that 2 weeks into a season? Because that's how bad the offense has been 2 weeks into the season. But I'm going to sit here and say, I can't say it. I can't. I don't know about you, Stu. I know this question is out there. We have to do this as a topic. But knowing who Caleb Williams is, and I don't think it's Caleb Williams isn't mentally ready to be a pro quarterback. Like, I don't think physically he's not ready to be a pro quarterback. Like, you look at Bryce Young. That dude's small. He did not play well last year behind no offensive line. The Panthers' offensive line has actually played decent, has played well this year. And he's just not making the throws, and you wonder if there's something else. With Caleb Williams, he has the confidence. He wants to be the man. He wants to be the franchise quarterback. Is he 100% finished as a complete product? Absolutely no. But they made it clear right away. There was no quarterback competition. There was no, let's just throw like a guy like Mitch Trubisky years ago out to the Wolves the first few weeks of the season. Like, there's no Jacoby Brissett situation right now with Drake May that's going on in New England. They said, you are the man, Caleb Williams. You are the guy. Let's see what happens in year one. And when I look at it now through the first 2 weeks of the season, yeah, the offense has been one big fat joke. The offense has been terrible for the Chicago Bears. And I understand when you're watching Caleb Williams, if you're a Bears fan, you're sitting there on the edge of your seat and you basically want to put a blindfold on because every play, this is what you're doing. Oh, no, the offensive line stinks. Oh, no, no, no. Caleb, get rid of the ball. Caleb, get rid of the ball. Oh, Caleb Williams gets hit. And you just want to make sure that he gets back up. So I understand that's painful. But once you say he's the guy and you tell the entire world he's the guy, when you then try to put somebody else in, I'm not saying that then the Caleb Williams era would be over because they would eventually go back to him. It's not like Bryce Young after a season and 2 games where you put in Andy Dalton. You know that's the end for Bryce Young in Carolina. If they put Caleb Williams on the bench, we know it's only going to be for a few weeks to protect him and they'll eventually go back. But even though it could logically make sense, I'm not operating this with bubble wrap. I'm not. Once you already unwrap the big screen TV, right? And it was in the packaging, it was in the bubble wrap. Once you already unwrap that TV and put it on the wall, right? Like I got a brand new TV. Thank you to my friends at PC Richards and Sons, right? They package it up nicely to put it in the car. I drove it into the city. Once I take the bubble wrap off and put it on the wall, well, 2 weeks later, I'm not saying, oh, I'm going to put the TV back in the bubble wrap. And I'm going to take it off. That just doesn't happen. So the Chicago Bears, they put Caleb Williams basically in the bubble wrap. They could have initially. They had their nice shiny possession, their nice shiny number 1 overall pick, and they said, we're putting the TV on the wall. You don't take the TV off the wall. So, Stu, even though probably logically I could understand people that say, hey, it's probably in the best interest of Caleb Williams. I think from a mentality standpoint now and who Caleb Williams is, I don't think he could handle, A, getting benched, and 2, I just can't say the words. Like, I can't say, Chicago, bench Caleb Williams, and actually feel like I mean that. Because there's a lot of talk show hosts, they'll just say things that they don't mean. I tell you everything, and I have meaning behind everything I say. And if I told you that the Bears should bench Caleb Williams right now, there's just an immediate alarm that goes off in my head. Zach, you don't believe that. And that's where I'm at on this one, Stu.
Yeah, I'm totally with you. I just can't see a scenario where they do that. I know the offensive line has been an issue. Obviously, he's taken a lot of sacks, hasn't looked, amazing. But he's just one of those guys that you just don't look at. Like, we knew when they drafted him, they were going to start him week 1.
Yeah,
he had the experience. He has all the talent. It's just a matter of him putting it together. He doesn't reek of a guy that you would sit for 6, 8, 10 games.
I'll also throw 2 more things at you. And I give credit to Matt Eberflus for how the team played last year. They exceeded my expectations last year. But just because someone is the flavor of the month doesn't mean you make them the flavor for the foreseeable future. How the Chicago Bears, and I know Jim Harbaugh wanted the Chargers job, but Jim Harbaugh also played for the Chicago Bears. And I get it. Ryan Poles did a nice job setting this franchise up, and maybe there could have eventually been a contentious relationship with Ryan Poles and Jim Harbaugh. But how Jim Harbaugh wasn't hired as the coach of the Bears is something I don't get. Because you hear Carr talk about the coaching. Here's what I know about Jim Harbaugh. Jim Harbaugh would have walked into Chicago and he would have beefed up the offensive line. He would have made sure they were running the football, and he would have put Caleb Williams in a better position to succeed than whatever the offensive staff is doing in Chicago right now. That's number 1. But the Bears wanted to keep Poles. The Bears wanted to keep Eberflus. So if this continues to go the way that it's looking like it's going to go, and hey, they're 1-1, to be fair. That week 1 victory, I don't think it was really a credit to anything that they did do all that well. I know the defense, special teams you could praise, but offensively they were terrible. But this team, I thought, was a legitimate playoff team before the season started. And it's not a high bar, 9-8, 10-7, and you could make the postseason. But at the end of the year, even if it's like mediocre and they just miss out in the playoffs, you got to ask yourself, is this the right coaching for Caleb Williams? Because you already swung and missed on Jim Harbaugh, or you didn't even really swing, let's be real. And Sean Payton, right, is with the Broncos. That's why a guy like Sean Payton should have never taken the Broncos job. He could have waited and then walked into Denver and walked into Chicago like a year from now and take a few years off and have the stress levels go down. And then you get to coach Caleb Williams. But who's still out there? Guy by the name of Bill Belichick. And it's like the Bears may have to ask themselves at the end of the year, do you hand over the entirety of your franchise to a Bill Belichick? And if they say no to Bill Belichick, what about a guy like Mike Vrabel? Because we know Belichick runs circles around Eberflus and his staff. We know that Mike Vrabel, heck, he took Ryan Tannehill to an AFC championship game. Ryan Tannehill. Think about that. Ryan Tannehill. You almost have to pinch yourself. You still can't even believe that Tennessee got to an AFC championship with Ryan Tannehill as their quarterback. Like, there's better options. Just Vrabel right now is like an advisor with the Browns. And then you got Belichick, who's like a media whore now. He would never talk to the media. Now all this guy does, he's on Let's Go hosting it. He's on the Manning Cast. He's on McAfee. He does a show like every single day, Mr. Mumbles and Bill Belichick. So that's the thing that the Bears are going to have to ask themselves. Even if I would say it's playoffs or bust, but I don't even know if that's true. But even if this team is mediocre, and they're like 8-9, and they just miss out in the postseason, like, it's not a horrible season. I'm not going to say it's a good season. But do you want to just keep on surrounding your future with a coach and a staff that hey, let's be real, there's better options out there. And I think you got to learn from your mistake, because you did that already by keeping Eberflus when he probably deserved to keep his job, but it wasn't like anyone thought he was the next, Lombardi as head coach, and he deserved to keep his job for another year. But now it's like, okay, you knew there was a better option out there in Harbaugh, and there's going to be a better option out there on offseason from now, at least 2 that I can think of right off the top of the cabeza, in Bill Belichick and Mike Vrabel. I think that's the bigger conversation to have. It's who's going to be coaching the Bears for the next few years. It's not sit Caleb Williams right now to protect him, because then that staff knows, okay, you're basically admitting an L, admitting a defeat, and you're basically setting yourself to get fired. That's why it's never going to happen. And also, I don't think you put Caleb Williams back in bubble wrap. I don't. You already ripped off the Band-Aid. So you keep on playing him, and you keep on seeing what he could do. But after this year, the Bears are going to have a serious conversation. Do they actually want to take that next step? And are they actually trying to become contenders? Because if they are, Eberflus, you did a solid job in Chicago, but you could do a lot better. All right, this is Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. We'll come on back. We'll highlight some stars in terms of the NFL and college football with players and coaches. When we return, update time, though. First, here he is, the Ackman, Rich Ackerman.
Infinity Sports Network, Sports Flash.
And it's sponsored by Progressive Insurance. Protect your family, your phone, and your furry friends with life, electronic device, and pet health insurance. The Steelers have held up okay without Russell Wilson. Justin Fields has them at 2-0, and Mike Tomlin said they're preparing once again as if Fields will start with Wilson still limited by a calf injury. With Isaiah Pacheco down for a while, the Chiefs are bringing back Kareem Hunt, signing him to their practice squad. Hunt was a 2017 third-round pick. And the Bengals need some reinforcements up front on defense and are signing former Patriot Lawrence Guy to the 53-man roster. Baseball's decision to expand the playoff picture is providing some intrigue down the stretch, as in the American League, the Twins are being chased by the Tigers, who have moved to within a game and a half of Minnesota for the final playoff berth. The Twins continue their series against the first-place Guardians in Cleveland after dropping the series opener, and manager Rocco Baldelli said they need to find a better way to put teams away.
We weren't able to extend the lead. We put the 3 runs on the board. then we went. We were quiet after that, and you can't be quiet against good teams. You got to find a way to just keep going.
On the flip side, Detroit rallied from a 4-0 deficit to take the series opener from Kansas City. I'm Rich Ackerman.
This is the Infinity Sports Network. Follow us on Instagram. Our handle is Infinity Sports Network. That's Infinity Sports Network to follow us on Instagram.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. 30 seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Continues on the Infinity Sports Network.
The Defensive Player of the Week is sponsored by the Navy Federal Credit Union, who proudly serves the Armed Forces, DoD, veterans, and their families. Their members are the mission. Learn more at NavyFederal.org. This week's player is Lions defensive end Aiden Hutchinson. In Sunday's game against the Bucs, the former Michigan man had 4.5 sacks as well as a forced fumble. Hutchinson now has 26.5 sacks in his career. And think about that, Stu. The Lions got 4.5 sacks out of Aiden Hutchinson, and it still wasn't good enough to get a victory up against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. It kind of encapsulates the entirety of the NFC right now, and we'll get into more of this in a little bit later in the show, but the Eagles are 1-1. They were supposed to be a top 3 team in the NFC. The Lions are 1-1. They were supposed to be a top 3 team in the NFC. And the Lions were lucky, quite frankly, to beat the Rams in week 1. And then the San Francisco 49ers, they were also supposed to be one of the top 3 teams in the NFC. And they are 1-1 to start the year. And now the Niners are dealing with a bevy of injuries where you got Deebo Samuel, who's going to be now knocked out for a few weeks. Christian McCaffrey's now knocked out for a few weeks. And who knows if he's ever going to be healthy this year. But the NFC, Stu, we thought they were closing ground on the AFC. And I get it, right? There's been some disappointing teams in the AFC. The Ravens are 0-2. The Bengals are 0-2. But you walked into the NFC this year saying, all right, Eagles are going to be good. Niners are going to be really good. Lions are going to be really good. The Packers are going to be really good. The Rams, who are 0-2, are going to be really good. And the teams that no one was even thinking about, Vikings, what's Sam Darnold going to be? Buccaneers, can they repeat what they did a year ago? The Saints, forget it. Even the Saints fans were crushing them. And those teams are 2-0. It's crazy where we are right now in this mess and the muddy waters to start the first 2 weeks of the NFC season.
I just don't even know where I would go at this point. If you ask me who I think is going to win the NFC, get to the Super Bowl,
yeah,
and it probably would have been one of those teams or maybe the Packers.
I still think it has to be one of those 3 teams.
Yeah.
Like, do we believe the Bucks? Do we believe the Saints or the Vikings are going to be playing in the Super Bowl?
No, I would be stunned.
And Seattle's also 2-0, but it's not like Seattle has looked wonderful. They barely beat the Patriots. It took overtime.
They beat the Broncos.
And in week 1, they beat the Broncos. I think the Broncos scored like 20 points. That's a lot of points for Denver.
It's a lot of points.
Jeez. So here's the question. There's injuries, obviously. But is what we've seen with the underwhelming sloppy play maybe not a reason to really panic, because this has been the sport the last few years with basically no offseason program that allows hitting. No one ever really playing in the preseason anymore. They're telling us how great these joint practices are. It used to be, right, September is an extension of the preseason. Now it's usually September and some of October is an extension of the preseason. So I wonder how much that factors into it as well, Stu.
It's a very good point. And I just think it's also, you have a few really bad teams and you have a few really good teams, and then you have about like 20, maybe 28 teams that are, they could either go 10-7 or 7-10 or somewhere in between.
It's kind of like college football.
It's a lot of parity.
There's not a lot of great teams. In the NFL, there's not a lot of great teams. In college football, there's not a lot of great teams. You could confidently say, they're going to go win a championship this year. 855-212-4227, 855-212-4227. And hey, I love football. It's my favorite sport. I love going to football games. I had a great time last night at Lincoln Financial Field, but there were times where the play was just so, on both sides, just blah, and just boring. When you're sitting there and you're usually in a raucous atmosphere in Philadelphia, and there's moments like the C.J. Gardner-Johnson play where that building pops, but there's other times I I expect this to be a lot louder of an atmosphere. Let's go to Anthony in Myrtle Beach to kick things off. 855-212-4227. Ant, what's shaking, my man?
What's happening, brother?
Doing great, Anthony. What do you got for me?
Bro, you need to calm down. You were so passionate about the Eagles. I forgot you were a Patriots fan a minute there. It's like you're about to give yourself a heart attack live on air.
That wouldn't be good, but I'm capable. I'm not an NBA player. I don't need any load management. I got very little sleep last night. I show up the next day and I deliver. I go drop 40 points in the first quarter, all right?
I get it. You're doing good. Listen, about Caleb Williams real fast. Not a big college football fan. Didn't know anything about the kid. Lived up to the hype. Everyone gassed him up. He's trash. I feel like I am watching a rookie quarterback that never played. I don't think he's living up to it. You're absolutely right. They should bench him. And as far as your boy Saquon over there, I mean, that's why the Giants got rid of him, because he's no good. They another one that's gassed up. They put all this hype around people, and I think it's for ratings and jersey sales and to get people in the stadium. But really, a lot of these people they're gassing up are trash. And come on, give Ryan Tannehill his props where he's due. No one ever thought we would go into New England, kill the GOAT. No one ever thought he'd go into Baltimore, rip the heart out of an MVP. We just can't get past the great Mahomes.
Wait, so Anthony, hold on.
He did his job.
You're telling me Saquon Barkley's trash. You're telling me Caleb Williams trash, but Ryan Tannehill is someone that's great. That's what you're telling me?
Did I say great? I didn't say great.
I said I had to give him credit. All right, good. You think he's good?
Ryan Tannehill in his prime was definitely the man. He had a lot better ratings, passer rating than a lot of people. I mean, they were the number one seed. They took as a wild card of Titans in 2020-21. They went into Foxborough.
And he had a nice throw on third down. But let's be real, that team was that good because of the defense and the way they played in that playoff run, and also a guy by the name of Derrick Henry. And I understand. Like, I crushed Saquon out of the gate. I never said that they should bench Caleb Williams. We were just talking about the conversation. To say after 2 games that Caleb Williams is trash when he won a Heisman Trophy and he's been a good quarterback in college, and just because you're a great quarterback in college doesn't mean it translates into the pros, but you can't put many quarterbacks behind that offensive line and expect much. And Saquon is not trash. Saquon needs to catch the ball, but let's also be realistic here. The reason why the Giants let him go is because the Giants roster is terrible and they didn't want to pay all that money to a running back, and they need to allocate those dollars in other places. So let's pump the brakes a little bit before we call Saquon trash and are ready to fully give up on Caleb Williams after 2 games. All righty, Stu, let's get a little superstar spotlight here. Let's start with the NFL. One player from last week that you want to give credit to.
How about Marvin Harrison Jr.? Obviously, that first game was pretty bad. Only targeted a couple times. This game...
Not Kyler's fault, though.
No, it's not his
job to get him the ball, right?
No. But Kyler did get the ball to him. 4 catches, 130 yards, 2 touchdowns. Did it all pretty early on, but it was nice to see the maybe the most talented player in this past year's draft get off to a good start week 2.
And I think he's the best player in this draft class. I said he's the best wide receiver, and I said he was the best player that I saw in college football a year ago, and I thought he definitely was going to be the best out of this rookie group. Okay, my player is Alvin Kamara. Yeah, the Cowboys got crushed, 44-19 up against the Saints. Alvin Kamara, though, on 20 carries at 115 yards, 3 rushing touchdowns, and oh yeah, by the way, had a receiving touchdown as well. Alvin Kamara is my player that I'm going to highlight in the NFL. All right, let's go NFL coach. Who's your NFL coach from this past week that you want to give credit to?
Going to go Todd Bowles. He has the Bucs at 2-0. Obviously, a really nice win over the Rams this weekend. And obviously, going into the season, a lot of people were, kind of hyping up the Falcons as they were the clear favorites in the NFC South. I was kind of one of those people, but I think the Bucs they won that division last year. They're kind of sneaky, and I think Bowles, who, didn't have a good start with the Jets, obviously, but he's now found a home in Tampa. He's a pretty good coach.
Let me go to Kevin O'Connell. It's one thing when you make Sam Darnold look like a superstar up against the Giants. It's another thing when you make Sam Darnold look like a really damn good quarterback against the San Francisco 49ers. He beat the 49ers last year, and then he beat them again this year, 23-17. The coach that I'm going to highlight this week is KOC, Kevin O'Connell. All righty, college football player of the week. Who's yours?
I'm going to go Quinn Ewers. Not Quinn Ewers. Arch Manning, who took over for Quinn Ewers. I know it wasn't the greatest competition, but he came in, looked pretty flawless, had that really nice touchdown run, which I wasn't expecting. I don't think a lot of people were expecting. So it was kind of nice to see Arch Manning really in his debut, if you will. I know he's played a few minutes here and there, but this really felt like the first time we really saw the real Arch Manning.
I love how we're all talking about the run, the 67-yard run.
Passing was good, too.
Peyton didn't have legs. Eli didn't have legs. And everyone's like, oh, I didn't know Arch had those legs. And we know Cooper was like a really great athlete. But no one, when you think Manning family, you don't think of running the ball. And he had wheels on that 67-yard touchdown. Alrighty, my college football player of the week, backyard brawl. The comeback kids once again. We know how big of a number Pitt was down to Cincinnati last week. This time they were down by 10 points over 3 minutes left up against West Virginia. Eli Holstein, the quarterback for Pitt, 21 of 30, 301 yards through the air, 3 passing touchdowns. And oh yeah, by the way, led the Pitt Panthers in rushing, 14 carries for 59 yards. So Eli Holstein is my college football player of the week. All right, who's your coach for college?
Going to go with Kansas State head coach Chris Kleiman.
There we go, Stu. Nice job.
They had a very nice win on Friday against Arizona, who was ranked at the time. Kansas State now 3-0, up to number 13. That Big 12 obviously is wide open. We've talked about that a lot. So they're a team that can maybe win the Big 12 and maybe sneak into the college football playoffs.
They were my pick to win the Big 12, and I purposely didn't take them because I wanted to see how astute Stu was going to be in this segment, and you hit it right out of the park. And not only did they defeat Arizona, and Hickey was like guaranteeing that Arizona was going to win the game. So obviously Chris Kleiman can thank Hot Take Hickey. But Arizona scored right out of the gate. First drive of the game, they scored 7-0. And then Kansas State had 31 unanswered points, and that game wasn't even close. And 2 years ago, he won the Big 12 championship, but no one cared about Chris Kleiman in Kansas State because TCU, was that year they made the college football playoff. All righty, the coach I'm going to highlight, he joined us leading up to the draft to talk about Quinyon Mitchell. That is Toledo's coach, Jason Candle. They beat Mississippi State. Toledo beat Mississippi State. The Rockets of Toledo beat the Bulldogs of Mississippi State 41-17. Oh, that's a heck of a job by Jason Candle at Toledo. 41-17 against an SEC team and the Mississippi State Bulldogs. Just a tremendous, tremendous job by Jason Candle. Alrighty, those are our superstar spotlight of the week when we give you a NFL player, an NFL coach, a college football player, and a college football coach as well that we will highlight each and every week. Alrighty, this is Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. It is a Tuesday today. It doesn't feel like a Tuesday. I thought today was Wednesday, quite frankly, when I did wake up. But I realized that it wasn't Tuesday because we didn't do overreaction, proper reaction yesterday. So when we come on back, Stu's got a bunch of questions for me. I'll give a bunch of answers. I'll tell you if it's an overreaction or proper reaction for what we just saw in this past week in the National Football League. It is the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. You'd always check us out on social media, Instagram and Twitter at Zach Gelb. That's ZACHGELB. Give us a follow.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. 3 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Infinity and beyond.
He's live. He's nationwide. This is the Zach Gelb Show.
All righty, this is Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. We do have breaking news as it does pertain to Tua Tagovailoa. Mike Garafolo from a moment ago. Sources to me and Ian Rappaport. The Dolphins are placing quarterback Tua Tagovailoa on injured reserve in order to give him ample time to progress through the stages of concussion protocol and meet with outside neurologists. The earliest Tua could return is week 8 against the Cardinals, but the Dolphins are committed to placing no timeline on him as he works through a deliberate process and an eventual return to play. Here's what I'll say. 2 things. 1, I didn't know this. So I know that you could get placed on IR and come back. I thought you just had to miss 4 weeks. You have to miss 4 games. So that's why he can't come back until week 8. So he's out for the Seattle game this week. He's out for Tennessee. He's out for New England. And then they have a bye week in week 6. And then he has to miss another game, so he's out for the Indianapolis Colts. So it's 4 games that you got to sit out, not 4 weeks. So the earliest he could return is October 27th. So with all that being said, the question is now, should Tua return? And let's be real. We've had these conversations before. I have said it's not my decision, but if you ask me, Zach, do you want to see him return? I don't think Tua Tagovailoa should ever play again in the NFL. I don't. But as I've said before, when you leave the decision in the player's hands, even though his mother a few years ago wanted him to retire, even though Manti Te'o, a close family friend, wanted him to retire after the situation in Cincinnati, and he can meet with every doctor that he wants, it's ultimately going to be Tua's decision. And it's clear from what we've already heard that Tua plans to play again. But even if he plans to play again, is he going to come back this season? Because this team is 1-1 right now. They play Seattle this week. They're starting Skylar Thompson at quarterback. Then you have Tennessee. You got New England. You got a bye week at Indianapolis. So if he's going to be out for 4 games, which we know now, and then he comes back for Arizona, I know this probably shouldn't be examined in just a football way, but they could keep this ship from sinking over the next 4 weeks. Like, Stu, out of those games, Seattle, Tennessee, New England, and Indianapolis, is there any game on that schedule that you go, okay, I would be very surprised if Miami with Skylar starting at quarterback, if they end up winning that game? Like, outside of Seattle, even though Seattle hasn't looked like world beaters for the first 2 weeks, but you know what Seattle has on offense, and the Dolphins' defense isn't all that great, I would be surprised, like, not shocked. I'd be surprised if they go into Seattle and beat Seattle. But outside of that, like, Will Levis stinks. The Patriots are a gritty team, but they don't have a ton of talent. And then the Indianapolis Colts, you don't know what you're going to get out of Anthony Richardson. You know, he makes one great throw. And I mean, like, an all-time great throw in week 1. But then you walk into Green Bay, and you're going up against the Packers. No offense to the Packers. They're starting Malik Willis at quarterback. And you couldn't beat Malik Willis last week. So I'm not saying the Dolphins are going to go 4-0. The Dolphins are definitely going to win 3 out of those 4 games. But if you're just trying to keep it afloat until you think you may get Tua back, that team could easily go 2-2. Like, I'm not asking, you to go into the dance and go home with the prom queen, for crying out loud, when you're like a nerd walking in to the prom. I'm just asking you to be average. You split those 4 games, you're 2-2, and you're sitting there, they'd be 3-3 after the first 7 weeks of the season. So if the plan is to get Tua to come back and Tua wants to return, I'm not saying that, 2-2 is definitely a lock, but it's not as if with Skylar Thompson as your quarterback, and we know he's no good, but it's not as if that's impossible to go get 2 wins when your 4 games are Seattle, Tennessee, New England, and Indianapolis.
Yeah, none of those 4 teams are great. I agree with you. I think Seattle's the one, especially the fact it's on the road. That's the one I think would be the most difficult. I would have said the Colts maybe a week or 2 ago, but the fact that they just lost to a Packers team without Jordan Love, it's kind of like a similar situation. Really good team without their franchise quarterback. There's no reason why they can't beat the Colts.
The Colts are the team that everyone goes, oh, they could be good. They could be good. They were gritty last year. They were 9-8 with Gardner Minshew starting at quarterback. They can be good. The Colts got to start showing me that they are good, not can be good. So let me ask you this in your heart of hearts right now. Do you think Tua comes back this year? Or do you think it's just dependent on what the record is after the 4 games, even though this probably should be a decision based off Tua and only Tua and not other outside factors? But you know how this works. There's always outside factors that get put into play here. And there's always, right, if the team goes 0-4 in these next 4 games, I would be surprised if they put him back on the field. But if they're alive and he wants to come back and play, and a doctor says, Tua, you sat out 4 games, 5 weeks, you're good to go, you survived another concussion, right? Even the long term, we don't know what you'll be long term, but short term, you're good to go play football. If you leave that door open, it's not just, oh, hey, we're looking out what's in the best interest of Tua. There's always other factors that play there. So what do you think?
I think he'll be back this year. I think we talked about this a lot on Friday. I don't think he should be, but I do think, especially if they're still in the mix, I think he'll be back.
I have been, full admission, vacillating on this. I started the show on Friday saying, I don't want to see him play again, but I think he'll play. Then when we had Armando Salguero on, and he talked about how Tua's mom didn't want him to return to football when the 2022 concussions happened, I'm like, oh, are you going to be able to tell mom no? Now I don't think he's going to play. And that's why I left the show Friday. I don't think he's coming back this season. But when you talk about the schedule, it's been clear and made clear that the Tua camp or Tua has gone out of his way over the weekend to tell the insiders he wants to return. He's not contemplating retirement. And now they put him on short-term IR and there's a designation date to return. And you also factor in where the schedule is. Yeah. At this point, I'm not going to say I would be shocked, but I would be surprised if Tua Tagovailoa doesn't return at some point this year. But it's going to be tough to watch because every time you see him play for the rest of his career, you're just going to be thinking, oh, we know how many concussions he suffered and how public those concussions were, and you just pray that he doesn't suffer another one. All righty, let's get to a little overreaction, proper reaction. It is the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network.
Another NFL week is complete, which means it's another week to freak out about your favorite team. Which takes are truly crazy.
But sometimes a game can be so bad, it's almost good. You know what I'm saying? No.
And which are so crazy, they might be right.
He's 6'5", he's 245 pounds. He's probably a Popeye's biscuit away from being a tight end.
Zach lets you know in this week's edition of Overreaction or Proper Reaction.
And I'm being a doofus the last few weeks. I keep on putting my left headphone in my right ear and my right headphone in my left ear, and then I'll be doing these highly animated segments for the listening audience. And I'm like, oh, why is my headphone falling out of my ear? And then I just looked because I realized it when I was tossing to the segment, and I'm like, oh, the right one's in my left ear, the left one's in my right ear, and then I had to do a little switcheroo.
Yeah,
but now we're cooking.
We have the same ones, and they are shaped for each ear. So if you have them in the wrong ear, they very easily pop out, I notice.
I need to take 5 minutes before the start of the show, not just on Wednesdays when we do Take 5 Wednesdays. And I need to make sure I'm putting the headphone in the correct ear. All righty, what do we got, Stu?
All right, the Seattle Seahawks are 2-0 thanks to nearly 500 yards through the air from Geno Smith and an incredible 74% completion percentage. In 2+ seasons in Seattle, Geno has made 2 Pro Bowls, made the playoffs once, and has amassed a record of 20-17. So overreaction or proper reaction, the Seahawks should stick with Geno as their long-term quarterback.
I'm probably going to be a hypocrite here because what I'm about to say makes no sense. I don't believe Geno Smith is a franchise quarterback. I don't believe he is a long-term guy. But it's kind of like, okay, what do you define a long-term guy? Like, is Geno going to probably be the starting quarterback of this team with 1 year left on his contract next year? Yeah. Do I need to commit to him more than that and rush to give him an extension? No. But Dak's not going there. You know, Kirk Cousins, I don't think they're trading for him if he becomes available from the Atlanta Falcons. So it's like, who else are you going to get? And you're probably not going to be bad enough where you could trade up in the draft. But I look at Geno Smith. There's a lot of other guys you could want. But then there's also a lot of other guys that if you move on that you could get. And you're like, ugh, is it going to be better than what you have? So I think they should stick with Geno for another season if it continues to go this way, but don't make the mistake of, oh, I need to go give him a 3-year contract extension after this year. Just let it play on out. So the Seahawks should stick with Geno as their long-term quarterback. I'm going to go overreaction. I think it's year to year, but the start to the season is off to a good one for Geno Smith.
As we discussed to start the show, the Eagles fell to the Falcons despite having a 99.3% chance to win with under 2 minutes to play, thanks to some questionable play calling from Nick Sirianni and an awful dropped pass by Saquon Barkley. So overreaction.
You know what? It's Kellen Moore making the decision. Can we be fair here? Because Sirianni, what does he do? He's a babysitter. And he doesn't even babysit well. That locker room was a joke last year. Him and the quarterback don't get along, so Kellen Moore calls all the plays. They bring in another defensive coordinator, Vic Fangio. And still, let's be real. I think you and I could have led a touchdown drive up against that Eagles defense on the final 2 minutes of the game. That was crazy.
Yeah, the defense was pretty soft. Hard to argue that. Overreaction or proper reaction, Nick Sirianni will be the Eagles head coach next season.
He could be because Howie Roseman and Jeffrey Lurie love a puppet, and Sirianni is a puppet. But if he is, with the way that this season could potentially go, that's a bad look for the Eagles. The Eagles just don't have it anymore. They can still be good, but there's a difference between being good and great. They were 10-1 last year. They won one game down the stretch. And then you had a victory last night, and you snatched defeat from the jaws of victory. I can't sit here and say that Sirianni should or will be coaching the Eagles next year. I thought they should have went to Belichick, or they should have gone to Vrabel after last year, or got Harbaugh. Those are all three names that I threw out there and said it's a mistake if you bring back Sirianni. So when you ask me, Sirianni will be the Eagles coach next year, I can't say that confidently right now. So I will say that is an overreaction.
All right, 3 of the top 4 receivers in the draft have gone off to strong starts, with Marvin Harrison Jr. putting up 130 yards and 2 scores last week. Malik Neighbors hauling in 10 catches for 127 yards and a touchdown, and Brian Thomas Jr. grabbing a 66-yard catch on his way to 94 yards in the Week 2 loss to the Browns. However, 9th overall pick Rome Odunze is struggling along with the rest of the Bears' offense with just 3 catches for 44 yards in 2 games. So overreaction or proper reaction, you're concerned about Odunze's lack of production so far.
Overreaction because he's been banged up, the offensive line stinks, and Caleb Williams is looking like a rookie. I think once they get things going, now we'll see if they get things going, Odunze is going to be a really good professional wide receiver in this league. So overreaction when you ask me if I'm concerned about Odunze's lack of production so far this season.
All right, after 2 games, Lions superstar defensive end Aiden Hutchinson has 5.5 sacks thanks to a massive 4.5 sack game on Sunday against the Bucs. In his first 2 seasons, Hutchinson had 21 total sacks. Overreaction or proper reaction, Aiden Hutchinson is a top 10 defensive player in the league.
Great question. So Myles Garrett needs to be in the top 10. TJ Watt needs to be in the top 10. Chris Jones needs to be in the top 10. Max Crosby needs to be in the top 10. Chris Jones, did I say him?
You did. You said Chris Jones, right?
Micah Parsons, that needs to be in the top 10. So I see Samter holding up 5 fingers. I said Pat Surtain, right?
You did not say Surtain yet.
Surtain needs to be. I will, even though he needs, I'm not throwing Sauce Gardner in there yet. He needs to play a little bit better. He could definitely be in the top 10. He's in the conversation. But I didn't like Sauce Gardner tapping out the other night and going to the sidelines. Yeah, I don't think I can name, without a doubt, 4 more players in the top 10. I'm like, is there any obvious omissions there? That we said Chris Jones, Max Crosby, Myles Garrett, Micah Parsons, TJ Watt, Pat Surtain. Fred Warner needs to be in the top 10. He is a heck of a player. Yeah, I would put Hutchinson in the top 10 right now. And he's so important to what they do. He actually may be the most valuable player to the Detroit Lions. Because that's a guy on the defensive side of the ball that could just change the complexion of a game. So I think it's close. Like, there's other guys you could throw in. But if you tell me he's a top 10 defensive player, I can't say that's an overreaction. I think that's a proper reaction. It's debatable, but it's fair.
Aaron Rodgers, he got his first win for Samter's Jets, shaking off a rusty first 6 quarters before.
He's now back to being a Jet fan? I thought he was a Chiefs.
Apparently so.
Oh, okay.
He's back to his Jets. This is before turning it on in the second half against the Titans. Rodgers is completing 61% of his passes with 3 touchdowns to just 1 interception on the season, but is averaging 170 yards through the air. Overreaction or proper reaction, Rodgers has shaken off the rust, and the Jets' offense will be dangerous.
Let me just go back to the top 10 defensive player real quickly. I just pulled up the top 100 list. So we'll get to that in just a second. Let me just answer your question, though. Aaron Rodgers has shaken off the rust, and the Jets' offense will be dangerous. I think that's an overreaction. I think the Jets' offense will be good, but that's still set up for that team to be dominated or dominate with their defense first and just have the offense be good, be okay. They don't need to be great. But that offensive line still questionable. Breece Hall, phenomenal. Bounce back. Garrett Wilson's going to be really damn good, and I think Rodgers is going to have a solid season. But anyway, getting back to the question you asked me. So I'll say that's an overreaction that, Rodgers is shaking off the rust and the Jets offense will be dangerous. More so in the dangerous part why I go overreaction. But I just pulled up the NFL Top 100 list, which is not the end-all be-all. There's a lot of flaws on that list.
We know that.
Let's see how many defensive players they list before Aiden Hutchinson. So Myles Garrett was the first defensive player at 5. Chris Jones was at 6. TJ Watt was at 8. And Max Crosby was at 10. So 4 defensive players in the top 10. Let's go to the next batch of players here. Fred Warner was at 11, so that's 5. Any more? Micah Parsons was at 17, so that's 6. Roquan Smith was at 19, so that's 7. Now let's go to the top 30. Let's see when they put Hutch on here. Any other defensive players? You have Penei Sewell and Amon-Ra St. Brown at 22 and 23, 2 Lions. Dexter Lawrence in at 24. That was 8, I think. And Jalen Ramsey in at 9. That's 25. Nick Bosa in at 10. That's 27. Khalil Mack in at 11. That's 29. 29 and 11. I'm just trying to see when they put Hutchinson on here. We have 11, right? Is that the math? I'm terrible when I start doing this stuff. How about this guy? Remember Deron Bland from last year? Led the league in interceptions, all those pick sixes. He was at 31. Quincy Williams in at 32. What are we at? 13, I think that is. Josh Hines Allen. That's a really good one.
Yeah.
So that was 35. Quinnen Williams in at 37. Sauce Gardner in at 38. What's the count right now?
16.
Oh, geez. All righty, let's see where Hutch is. Where the heck is Hutch on this list? All righty, that's Kyle Hamilton in at 43. Demario Davis in at 44. Antoine Winfield Jr. in at 46. And I found him. Up 41 spots from a year ago. And at 47 was Aiden Hutchinson.
20th ranked defensive player.
Now, I still think you could say he's a top 10 defensive player, right, still?
I think so.
I
There's
don't
some
think
of those
it's
guys
crazy.
that I think he's better than.
Like Deron Bland.
Definitely better than Deron Bland.
That's a one-hit wonder.
Yeah.
That's a season that was, ridiculous. All righty. Let's get the last question here. Go ahead.
All right, last one, Zach. The Cardinals dominated the shorthanded Rams a week after blowing a big lead to the Bills. Kyler Murray has looked sharp, throwing for over 400 yards with 4 touchdowns and no picks while adding over 100 yards on the ground. Overreaction or proper reaction when healthy, Kyler Murray is a top 5 quarterback in the NFC.
Oh, in the NFC.
Yes,
I thought you were going to say the NFL.
No, NFC.
I was like, I thought my head was going to go implode right there. NFC. Ooh, that's when healthy. That's a great question.
Might not need the top 100 list for this.
So who are the definites? Stafford? Outside of that, it's up there.
Hurts.
Hurts. Yeah, Hurts. I go Hurts over Murray. Hurts has done more.
Dak.
But let's just do this real quickly. Panthers don't have one. Kirk Cousins. I think there's more upside with Kyler Murray. Kirk's more consistent, but there's more upside with Kyler Murray. Baker, Kyler Murray. I think there's more upside with Kyler Murray. Derek Carr, Kyler Murray. I'd rather have Kyler Murray. Jordan Love, I'd rather have. Caleb Williams, too premature. Jared Goff, solid. Brock Purdy, Geno Smith, Dak Prescott. You know what? Yeah, he's top 5. In the NFC, Kyler Murray was viewed as a good quarterback, and the question was, could he be great? Then he got hurt. He could be a bad leader at times, and he could say some stupid things to the media, like after week 1. But if he plays the way that he played in week 2, it shows you what he can be. And that was up against the Rams, too. So when Kyler Murray is healthy, yeah, I would say that's a proper reaction that he's a top 5 quarterback in the NFC. But it shows you how just questionable the NFC is when it comes to quarterbacks. All right, that's overreaction. Proper reaction. This is the Zach Gelb Show right here on the Infinity Sports Network. Football is back, and what better way to celebrate than winning some cash with Sleeper Picks? Sleeper Picks is a fantasy game, but you can win real money. Just pick more or less at least 2 player stats, or just pick more or less on at least 2 player stats. If your picks are right, you win. And you can pick up to 8 players to win up to 100 times your money. And Sleeper has a couple huge offers to kickstart the football season. For new users, Sleeper will match your first deposit with up to $100 credit to your account. If you've already played, Sleeper's got discounted player projections for you every week of the season. So download the Sleeper app now and use promo code SCORE, and your first deposit will be doubled with the credit up to $100. What are you waiting for? Download Sleeper today and use code SCORE for a credit up to $100 match on your first deposit. That's code SCORE. Must be 18 years in most states and in state where it is legal. Promo code and other restrictions apply. Visit sleeper.com. Please wager responsibly. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-426-2537 for help. Paid for by Blitz Studios.
You're in a 4-minute break. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
You're listening to the Infinity Sports Network.
All right, it is the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. So I guess even though it's like a vague way of saying it, the Steelers are intending to start Justin Fields once again this week. It is the right call to continue to play Justin Fields, even though I look at Justin Fields for the first 2 weeks of the season. I'm not blown away with what he's done, but let's also call a spade a spade. That offensive line in front of him is not doing him any favors, but when you're 2-0 to start a football season, I don't go back to Russell Wilson just for the sake of going back to Russell Wilson. It'd be one thing, right, Stu, if it was Russell Wilson from 4 or 5 years ago, when it's like, okay, that's a bona fide franchise quarterback. But when Russell Wilson has been a bad quarterback the last few years, and he has kind of lost his way and lost his direction in the NFL, you play Justin Fields, who has a higher ceiling than Russell Wilson. But Tomlin, I'm kind of getting a little sick and tired of him, which is weird because I'm a Tomlin guy, and I've always said that if I ever need someone to, well, I don't even want to get that far down the road, but if I ever wanted one coach to read my eulogy at my funeral, it would be Mike Tomlin, because he just has a certain way with his words, and he says absolutely nothing in his press conferences, but I always walk away inspired, and he seems like he's a great motivational speaker. But this is Ian Rappaport's tweet about the whole Mike Tomlin situation with Justin Fields. Steelers coach Mike Tomlin announced that the plan is for QB Justin Fields again to be a starting QB. The team is readying itself for Fields, while Russell Wilson's calf won't be a full participant just yet. We all stay in that mindset until something happens. Like, why can't he just say that Justin Fields is our guy moving forward? You know, even if it's not long-term, but he's just our guy until we tell you he's not. Because to do these weekly updates, it's kind of just getting really boring at this point. And he, like last week, he didn't even fully say that they were starting Justin Fields, even though that was the way that it's reported. He's using this stuff like readying itself. Hey, we're readying itself for Justin Fields to play. Where it like leaves the door open for us, but we all know when the Steelers take the field this upcoming weekend that Justin Fields is going to be the guy leading them out onto the field. That part of it, Stu, is what I'm getting a little tired and bored with, even though I love Tomlin. Like, just say, hey, even though Justin hasn't been great, you know, it's not ideal circumstances, he's 2-0, and until we tell you otherwise, he's our team starting quarterback. That's what I would do. But it's almost like the Steelers are trying to protect Russell Wilson, and I don't get why they're protecting Russell Wilson, Stu, because all you do is you owe him, $1.5 million, the veteran minimum, whatever it is. It's not as if that's your franchise quarterback. It's not as if you need to care about his feelings, and it's not as if he's done a lot of great things in Pittsburgh. This is the life of a backup quarterback. And Russell Wilson, with what he's displayed since leaving Seattle, doesn't show that he deserves to be a starter. He is a backup quarterback that can maybe start some games, maybe be viewed as a team's short-term plan, but teams now moving forward aren't looking at Russell Wilson and saying, outside of maybe a season most, oh, that's our long-term option at the quarterback position.
The two thoughts I had were, like you just said, one, that they're protecting Russ because he's the veteran. He's the guy that's won a Super Bowl. And even though he's only making, the minimum now, they're still protecting him. I also think he's trying to leave himself an opening because I think Justin Fields has been pretty good, but he hasn't been amazing. He's been fine.
He's been good considering the circumstances.
Yes.
You know, he gives you some mobility. He is playing behind an offensive line that is a bad offensive line, regardless how many times Steelers try to tell you that they've revamped the offensive line. And, you know, you got George Pickens. If they could just make sure that they don't have penalties, then George Pickens would be a whole lot more productive because Fields and Pickens have developed a nice rapport, but it keeps on getting called back because of penalties. You know, it took a touchdown off the board this past week. So it's one of those things where it's weird to me, Stu, how they're trying to protect Russell Wilson. I don't get why they're trying to go out of their way to kind of basically put kitty gloves on and put like floaties on Russell Wilson and say, oh, we need to protect Russell Wilson. Like, who cares about Russell Wilson? This dude's not Russell Wilson, the 9-time Pro Bowler, the 10-time whatever he is of 4 or 5 years ago. This is Russell Wilson now that just got cut by the Denver Broncos after giving up a ridiculous amount of draft capital and giving him a large contract, and that contract extension didn't even start because they knew he was cooked. That's the part to me. It's like it would almost be as if, like, let's say Joe Flacco was their quarterback there. And I know Joe Flacco had a nice end to the season, but Joe Flacco, for the most part, has been out of people's minds for years. So it would be like if they had Joe Flacco in there, What would be the point of protecting and caring about Joe Flacco's feelings and thinking that, oh, you can't say what you want to say about Justin Fields, that he's your starter because you're worried about Russell Wilson? Like, who gives a bleep about Russell Wilson right now?
Yeah, clearly their thinking about it's different than ours. I agree with you. I just think that there's that respect, the fact that he's a veteran that has been a very good quarterback in this league, and I think he thinks he owes that to him. Now, does he? I'm with you. I don't think so, but I think he views it that way.
Yeah, and you know what also I think it could be? I think it could also be that maybe they just don't really believe in Justin Fields fully yet. Because if that's the case, right, and you have questions about Fields, which it's fair to still have questions about Fields, that means in the back of your mind, oh, I don't want Russ to think that there's not a chance for him to get back on the field because they may need him at some point. Let me play you, though. So Justin Fields after the game tells us all that Russell Wilson got a game ball. And I guess Mike Tomlin does these petty game balls. If you're playing your former team, regardless if you play in the game or not, you get a game ball. Like, if I'm Russell Wilson, think about this. The one revenge spot you had this year was to be able to go up against the Denver Broncos. The NFL scheduled that game early, right, in week 2. And it's one of those moments where you could go get your revenge and you don't even get on the field because you're hurt or the Steelers just want to go with Justin Fields. Like, I don't know about you, Stu. If I'm in the locker room afterwards, and I know Russ has to put on this act because, right, be a good teammate, all that stuff. If Mike Tomlin is like, hey, here's a petty game ball, Russ. We beat the Broncos, but you basically did nothing in that game because you weren't playing and he was inactive, and because of the quarterback rules now with the emergency quarterbacks, he's looking like a dope on the sideline in full uniform once again, which I can't believe, but I know why it's done. I would not want that game ball. That's a game ball that's just a reminder of what my career has been. I'm getting a sympathy. That's what it is. That's a sympathy game ball because Russ did nothing in the game. He didn't play. That, to me, it's one of those, Mike Tomlin, I know you mean well, sit that one out for the sake of Russ, because it's embarrassing now that everyone knows he has a petty game ball.
I agree with you. I'm sure Russ turned it into something where he talked to the team and
made it corny.
Yeah, that's the first thing I thought of when I heard about this game ball. Yes.
Steelers country. Here we go. Oh, please. All right, here is Mike Tomlin. He was asked about giving Russell Wilson that petty game ball.
Justin mentioned how rewarding it was to get the win in Denver for Russ. He said you gave out a petty game ball. Is that something that you've done often? Is it rewarding for you to get that win for him?
You know, none of your businesses, respectfully. There's certain things that go on among teams that I don't talk about. Whether it gets out or how it gets out is unimportant to me, and I'm not overly guarded against it. But it's just certain things as a leader that I talk to the collective about that I have zero intentions of sharing with the larger public. You know, I can't give you all the ingredients to the hot dog. You might not like it.
What are we doing here? Mike Tomlin, I love you. But what are we doing? That is the softest game ball that has ever been given out in the history of the NFL. Here is Ben Roethlisberger. He was on his Footballin' podcast, and he said that Justin Fields should be the starting quarterback.
It's to me, if Russ is healthy, I'm sticking with Justin.
That was my next question.
I know. I said it last week. I wouldn't, but what I saw today, I think that he has earned and deserves the right to stay there.
I'm with Ben Roethlisberger, and I'm not a doctor, and I understand this is a lingering calf issue with Russell Wilson, but I would think, okay, game 1, he wasn't healthy enough to play. And you could tell that by the way that he was saying that. But you're telling me he wasn't healthy enough to play for week 2? He was benched for week 2. He wasn't named the starting quarterback for week 2. And I think what this is now isn't, oh, Russ isn't healthy. Because there's a difference, right, in being fully healthy and then being healthy enough to play. I would think that if the Steelers needed Russell Wilson tomorrow, he would play. But since Justin Fields is now the guy, or is taking the baton, and even though he hasn't been great, considering the circumstances, they are 2-0. This is just, okay, we'll use the injury as kind of a front where he is legitimately hurt, but he probably could play if we needed him to. but we're going to keep on using that as an excuse just so we'll treat Russ with tender love and care. We'll put the floaties on him, right, like he's a kid, and we don't want to hurt his feelings. We don't want him having a temper tantrum. So we're going to not embarrass him, and we'll keep on going with Justin Fields. But Big Ben's right. As long as Justin Fields, with a bad offensive line in front of him, as long as they're winning games and he's finding a way to just swim, even if some waves come at him and he crashes and the head goes underwater, but as long as he keeps on popping back up and finding a way to swim, and you go and you look at Justin Fields and you say, okay, he's fine, I make him the starting quarterback, because not that I'm saying that Justin is the long-term answer, but there is a higher ceiling and there's more football life left in Russell Wilson than there is, with Justin Fields, than there is with Russell Wilson. It is Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. We'll take a break. When we come on back, some names have been floated out there to replace Billy Napier, even though he has not been officially fired yet at Florida. ESPN has put out a list. We'll read you those names next, and we'll react to them. Update time first, though. Here is the Ackman, Rich Ackerman.
Infinity Sports Network Sports Flash.
Well, the Dolphins are dealing with uncertainty again with Tua Tagovailoa and aren't going to take any chances. They're reportedly placing him on injury reserve to give him as much time as possible to recover from this latest concussion. He'll obviously miss the next 4 games. Russell Wilson remains hurt, but the Steelers have a plan B that has worked out so far. Mike Tomlin said they're once again preparing for Justin Fields to start this weekend. Pittsburgh is 2-0. They've scored only 31 points, but have allowed just 16 through the first 2 weeks. Kareem Hunt returns to Kansas City. The 2017 third-round pick of the Chiefs was signed to the practice squad with Isaiah Pacheco out for 6 to 8 weeks. The banged-up Bengals defensive line gets a boost with the signing of veteran Lawrence Guy. The Brewers can wrap up the NL Central tonight with a win over the Phillies and a loss by the Cubs, but Milwaukee is facing Zach Wheeler, who is looking for his 16th win of the season. The Mets and Braves continue their battle for the final wild card in the National League. New York eked out a 2-1 10-inning victory over Washington last night. The Braves split 4 with the Dodgers and are in Cincinnati tonight after dropping the series finale. I'm Rich Ackerman.
This is the Infinity Sports Network. Follow us on X and like us on Facebook. Our handle is @INF Sportsnet on X and INF Sportsnet for Facebook.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. 2 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Five seconds remaining. Seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Welcome back to the Infinity Sports Network.
This portion of the show is brought to you by Ethos Life, the easy way to get life insurance in 10 minutes, up to $2 million in coverage with no medical exam and just a few health questions. Get your free quote at checkethos.com, not available in all states. So basically, yesterday was the end of the Bryce Young era. Could have called it an error with the Carolina Panthers. I know he's still on the team. I'll be curious if maybe a team calls from now into the deadline to execute a trade. I would still say at some point this year, Bryce Young is starting another game for the Carolina Panthers. But after this year, that's when I think they're going to trade him. Still, let me ask you just this question. Right now, if you had to project into the future a trade for Bryce Young, what do you think the Panthers are getting back for Bryce Young, who is an undersized quarterback, but a quarterback that was the number one overall pick just 2 drafts ago? He's only been in the league for a year and 2 games, and we've seen quarterbacks get drafted a lot later than Bryce Young, or a little bit later than Bryce Young, and be just as much of a disaster. You know, I know it's different because it's the Panthers, right? They're a joke with all they moved to go get him and still go for a decent return. What would you say on the surface your first thought is the return for Bryce Young?
With how bad he's been, I know he is a first overall pick. With how bad he's been, I'm thinking like a 4th or 5th round draft pick. I don't think it's going to be a 2nd or 3rd.
Not a 2?
I don't think so.
How about a conditional 3?
That's true. Like maybe it's something where it's like a 4 that could turn into something better if he...
I think at best right now you could say it's a 3 straight up that could turn into a 2 if X, Y, and Z happens. That's the highest I could go. It can't just be a 2 outright.
No.
But I don't think that's a bad risk to trade a 3rd round pick that could be a 2 if so-and-so happens.
I would do it if I was the Raiders.
I was just going to ask you that. You would if you're the Raiders. You would do a 3 that could turn into a 2.
Yeah, if he hits like specific statistical things, yes. Which probably won't happen, but you never know type of thing, yeah.
And you play indoors too, which, right, when you look at Bryce Young, a smaller quarterback, if you kind of, put him indoors and you have him run around on an indoor field a little bit with Devontae Adams and those 2 tight ends. How's the Raiders' offensive line so far?
Not terrible from a passing block perspective. They've gotten no push in the running game, though.
Yeah, and hey, the Carolina offensive line actually hasn't been bad. I've seen the numbers on it. It's actually been pretty damn good. That's the big concern with Bryce Young. So, how many teams do you think would consider this? Bills, no. Patriots, no. The Jets, as a backup, they're not going to. As long as Rodgers is there, they're not bringing in somebody else. They're not bringing somebody else with a background that's actually good because Rodgers will get his feelings hurt. You know what's not a bad option? You know what I would do? I'll throw out one team that I would actually give up a 3 that could turn into a 2 tomorrow. What about the Miami Dolphins? I know they just paid Tua Tagovailoa, but to try to save this season, I'd rather put, and I think Tua will come back, I'd rather put Bryce Young out there than Tua Tagovailoa. Just in terms of, like, Tua, when he's healthy, I'd rather have Tua on the field. Don't get that misconstrued. I just don't know when Tua's coming back. Now, are they going to do that to Tua, though? But if you feel like you can't have Tua back for the rest of the year, with that offense, I'd take a flyer on it. I would. Chargers, no. Chiefs, no. Raiders, yes. Sean Payton won't do it with the Broncos because you just used the 12th overall pick on Bo Nix. Steelers, you got 2 quarterbacks, I guess, right now. What about the Browns? They won't do it to Deshaun Watson, but that's one at the end of the year that I think can at least be a conversation. Like, is that a crazy conversation to have at the end of the year, Stu, if Watson stinks?
No, it's not.
Bengals, no. Ravens as a backup to Lamar, yeah, I guess you could be my guess, but you're not going to give up a 3 that could turn into a 2 for a backup. Texans, no. You know what? Tennessee could use a quarterback. Why not? Will Levis went in the second round anyway. Just go gobble him up, Bryce Young, if you're the Tennessee Titans. Jaguars, no. Colts, no. They're not going to do it. Commanders have Daniels. Eagles have Hurts. Cowboys, no. What about the Giants? Giants can use a quarterback. I don't think that's a bad move if I'm the New York Giants, but behind the Giants' offensive line, Bryce Young may get killed. Seahawks, no. Cardinals, no. Niners, no. Rams, if Stafford retires at the end of the year, then potentially. No one in the NFC North. No one in the NFC South. You got to trade in division. Falcons, no. Bucks, no. And Saints, no, I would say as well. Like, if Carr stinks up the joint the rest of the way, then okay, fine. Not a lot of teams there. So the chances of them getting a 2 outright, I think, are slim. If it's a conditional 3 that turns into a 2, I think there is maybe a JPP handful of teams. Sorry, that wasn't nice. Maybe at most. But that's where I'm looking at with Bryce Young. Alrighty, I'll give you the names for Billy Napier to replace Billy Napier at Florida, even though he hasn't officially been fired yet, but everyone knows his fate is already sealed, signed. It just needs to get delivered. So Pete Thamel throws out Lane Kiffin. Stu, I don't think Lane Kiffin's leaving Ole Miss for Florida. 5 years ago, yeah, Lane Kiffin would do unthinkable things to get the Florida job. But you have Ole Miss in a good spot. You have the resources right now, and Florida's been a mess. And I kind of feel like there's not pressure on you at Ole Miss. If I'm Lane Kiffin, I never thought I would say this into a microphone. I'm not taking the Florida job. I'm staying at Ole Miss.
Yeah, feels at best lateral at this point.
So here's what Pete Thamel says. There are other prominent names. He says on Lane Kiffin, Ole Miss's Lane Kiffin will be a speculative favorite as his affinity for free-flowing thought channels. Steve Spurrier, his offensive acumen brings some elements of Urban Meyer, who came to Florida, and it's a skepticism that spread offenses could work in the SEC, and obviously they did. Now, there are other prominent names that will be mentioned along with Kiffin's. Who do you think is one name that's definitely mentioned? He gets mentioned for every job, and he always stays at the job that he has.
Oh, I was thinking, I was going to say Urban Meyer.
It's
not Urban Meyer. It's an active coach.
Active coaches, yeah.
Is it the Iowa State coach who I'm blanking on his name right now?
Matt Campbell is on this list, but that's not the name that I'm thinking of.
Campbell.
This coach gets mentioned. He has the greatest agent in the world. He is not a great coach. He will probably make the playoff this year, but this guy's name gets thrown out every single time there's a job.
James Franklin.
Yep. Now, the way that James Franklin would leave Penn State for Florida is if Penn State missed the playoff this year. If they don't miss the playoff, then he's staying at Penn State. But also, if you miss the playoff, why the heck would Florida want to hire you?
The optics on that would be terrible.
Yeah, and honestly, I don't think James Franklin could handle Florida. I know they're nutty up at Happy Valley, but you talk about the SEC football fan, I think would eat James Franklin alive. And I know he was like the head coach of Vanderbilt, but we're talking about like actual SEC teams. Nebraska's Matt Rule, no chance. I don't even need to talk to Matt about this or even make an inquiry. Zero chance Matt Rule is leaving Nebraska for Florida when he has Dylan Raiola right now at Nebraska and he has Nebraska humming. Eli Drinkwitz, that's a good name. Now, it's in SEC category going from Missouri to Florida. He's only 41 years old, which I thought he was a lot older than that. That would be a good hire for Florida. Oklahoma State's Mike Gundy's not leaving. Iowa State's Matt Campbell. I don't think Matt Campbell could handle Florida. When he had expectations at Iowa State and then they didn't reach where they were supposed to go, he's like, oh, your expectations are winning the Big 12. Those weren't my expectations. That's not going to fly at Florida. And then Kansas State's Chris Kleiman is thrown in there. I think Kleiman would just be a solid hire. That guy, everywhere he's gone, North Dakota State, Kansas State, he has won. But what Thamel points out is that all those coaches mentioned, like they could make the college football playoff, and that's going to delay the hiring cycle. And it's like, how in this era of the transfer portal, how patient can Florida be to wait for their guy? On that list, I would think the most realistic name is Eli Drinkwitz. I would say that's the most realistic name that Florida could get. I would say Chris Kleiman would probably slightly be a better hire. But I don't think it's Franklin. I don't think it's Rule. I don't think it's Gundy. I don't think it's Campbell. So I would say out of that list, I don't think Kiffin's going there. That's going to be their first option. And if anyone mentions Dan Lanning, I know Florida fans, because they're delusional, like, oh, we go get Dan Lanning. Dan Lanning wouldn't leave for Alabama. He's not leaving for Florida. Okay, he's staying in Eugene. So I would say out of those names mentioned, I would only think the realistic ones, like you could try to swing big for Kiffin, but I don't think you're going to get him. It's really Kleiman, and it would be Drinkwitz. That would be realistic and also would be a hire that I'd be like, okay, it's good. It's kind of crazy where we are. Where Florida, there's no name out there that you feel like is realistic that would be considered a great hire for Florida. And it kind of just shows you where the Florida program is at, that there's not really like an outstanding name there that you feel you could actually get to Florida. Alrighty, 2 hours in the books. We got one more hour to play. When we come on back, we examine the big three in the NFC, and so far have they been a no-show through the first 2 weeks of the NFL season.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. 3 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
To infinity and beyond.
He's live. He's nationwide. This is the Zach Gelb Show. Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
We have reached a crisis inside the NFC. The NFC, we thought we were on the verge of the gap being closed and being cut short a little bit from the AFC to the NFC. But through the first 3 weeks or 2 weeks of the season, the perceived to be three best teams in the NFC, they got some problems. The 49ers are banged up. Deebo Samuel out for a few weeks. Christian McCaffrey out for a few weeks as well. You then look at the Detroit Lions, where they lost to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and on offense, you saw Jared Goff not look all that great up against the Bucs, and you just paid him a lot of money, and he had 2 interceptions in the game, no passing touchdowns, and he threw the ball 55 times. And then there's the Philadelphia Eagles, which last night just reiterates the problems that the Eagles have. And I've been so up and down on the Eagles this offseason. When the Eagles ended their season in the fashion that they did so, after starting out the year 10-1 and not winning a game down the stretch, or one game down the stretch, I said, I don't care what the Eagles do this offseason. I can't see anything that makes me believe in this team because they're keeping Nick Sirianni as the coach and he should be fired. So then they signed Saquon Barkley. And I'm like, oh, that's a mover. They have so much talent on the offensive side of the ball where a running back was a luxury to them. And they overpaid to get Saquon Barkley. But you have an offense with A.J. Brown, who's out right now and is going to miss a few weeks. You got Devontae Smith. You got Saquon. You got Dallas Goedert. You got Jalen Hurts. That's a team that's pretty damn good. So that sucked me back in. And then you have the article that comes out that basically just rehashed what was going on in Philadelphia with Tim McManus. And Tim McManus lays out that, okay, Sirianni is not really coaching the offense. It's Kellen Moore. He doesn't have a good relationship with Jalen Hurts. And then you look back at it and you go, that bad team chemistry and that structure in Philadelphia is going to prevent this team. And last night, it was on full display, and I lost my mind to start the show. The first 15 minutes, I bashed the Eagles because they deserved it. Because you look at the final 2 minutes of that game, if you're going to call me up at 855-212-4227 and say, Zach, terrible play call by Nick Sirianni and Kellen Moore, I'm going to push back a little bit. And let me say this. I fully would have run the football there. I thought in that moment you run the ball when you were up by 3. Falcons can't stop the clock. There's 1:40 left in the game. I thought for sure run the ball. I didn't even consider a pass. But when you have Jalen Hurts roll out to the right and the running back that you just overpaid in Saquon Barkley is wide open. He could have done the worm. He could have done the Macarena, stand back up, and he was still wide open. And the ball is placed right in his hands. You got to catch it. Because if he catches the ball, turn out the lights, the fat lady is singing, the party's over. And the Eagles would have had their mistakes covered up because there are flaws with this team, but at least they would have been 2-0. Instead, Saquon dropped the ball, and then Kirk Cousins, you like that, marched right down the field in a little over a minute, 70 yards, and put the ball in the end zone to Drake London, where Darius Big Play Slay couldn't make a play to save his life on that final drive. So, the Eagles still had a chance, though, to win the game after that. And first play, I'm in the stadium, I'm thinking, they're going to go win this game. They get the ball to the 43. And then the very next play, poof, Jalen Hurts makes a mistake, and he throws an interception. You look back at that game, I'm just going to say it how I feel. If your first reaction from that game is, hey, what were Sirianni and Kellen Moore doing? I just don't think you were actually watching the same game I was watching. Because then you just totally gloss over the fact that Saquon dropped the ball. You totally gloss over the fact that after that, then we were up by 6. The defense didn't even put up an effort or a fight when Kirk Cousins gets the ball back. I don't care, even if they had the extra 40 seconds or not, and I get it's a big deal. How you allow Kirk Cousins, who's not 100% and is nowhere close to being 100%, easily walk down the field is laughable. Absolutely laughable. And oh yeah, by the way, Jalen Hurts made a brutal decision at the end of the game. Those are 3 things right there that I take bigger issue with than just the play call. Saquon's got to catch the ball. He has to catch the ball. No one's talking. You know what everyone's doing today? If Saquon Barkley catches the ball, how about the cojones that Kellen Moore and Nick Sirianni displayed in the fourth quarter on that play call? That's what everybody's saying. So Saquon's got to catch the ball. The defense can't look like the Falcons are a hot knife and the Eagles are butter. And also, you look at Jalen Hurts, he can't make that terrible decision at the end of the game. And, oh, yeah, by the way, if you want to crush Sirianni and Moore, don't crush Sirianni and Moore for electing to throw the football in that spot. And I say this to someone that thought they were going to run the football. How about you crush them right out of the gate when it's 4th and 3 or 4th and 4 at the 9, 10, 11-yard line, what it was early on in the first half? You take the points. You know, my uncle Gary, he is not a football coach, but there are certain sayings that you hear from your uncle enough when you're growing up and you're watching football that just live with you. And one of them is, in the first half, you always take the points. I don't need some analytic nerd or some stat geek to say, well, the percentages say this. I've seen maybe one time on an ESPN broadcast the percentages tell you to actually punt the football or kick the football. It always says to go for it. So on 4th and 4 in that spot right out of the gate when you're inside the 15-yard line, why are you going for it there? Take the points. And imagine they had those points at the end of the game. They had those points at the end of the game. They're up 6. That field goal ends the game, puts you up by 9. And you could run that play with Saquon Barkley, and it doesn't mean a damn thing even if he drops the ball, because you go up by 9. So there are at least 4 things right there. The Saquon drop, the defense being horrible, Jalen Hurts making a mistake when you're just trying to get in field goal range to win the game and you're already at your own 43, and the decision to go for it early on in the first quarter. All things that I crush before I say, hey, Nick Sirianni, Kellen Moore, run the ball in that spot. And I could understand one situation where maybe they could have run a better scenario. And maybe 2 things there, or 1 thing there. The only thing that I could say, and I was someone that was of the philosophy, run the football. If you run the ball there and Saquon was doing a good job on the ground, because at that point it was 3rd down and 3. Let's say you only get 2. The clock runs, another 40 seconds come off, and you could go for it even though it's only a 3-point game, and you run the risk of not getting it by doing that tush-push play, which outside of week 1 where Hurts dropped the ball and it was a fumble and a bad snap, that tush-push play is almost impossible. So I see why you would run the ball. I fully get that. I'm in the line of thinking that they should have run the ball. But I'm not crushing Sirianni and Moore for throwing the football, because the play that Kellen Moore did draw up, it was almost to perfection. But what you need for it to be perfect is for Saquon to do the little obvious thing, and that's catch the ball. It'd be one thing if Jalen Hurts rolled out, and it would be one thing if the line broke down, or if the Falcons sniffed out the play. Hurts rolls out to the right. It's a brilliant play design. You have Saquon that's right in front of him, and he's wide open for a first down. I'm sorry, that's the right play call. You may not like it. You may say, oh, run the ball, right? I was someone that thought they were going to run the ball. But when you roll out and Saquon is wide open, Saquon's got to catch the ball. So I will defend the Eagles for that decision a little bit, and I think there's other areas where if you actually watch the game, you should be more irate about. But the bigger point of conversation here is you look at the NFC. The Lions, after 2 weeks, you say, Jared Goff hasn't looked all that great, and they just paid him all that money. He has 1 touchdown pass through 2 weeks and 3 interceptions. You then look at the Eagles, and here's the thing with the Eagles. They have some big names, but this team has some big holes. And since starting 10-1 last year, they've been one big fat joke. And even though you have names, you may not have the it factor. And I look at the Eagles, and I just don't think they have the it factor anymore. I really think they have lost that factor. Well, they'll be good, but the objective isn't just to be good. The objective is to go win a Super Bowl, which they almost did 2 years ago. But what does almost mean? You didn't do it. And then you had the 49ers. And the 49ers, hey, the McCaffrey injury is a concern. Debo's now going to miss a few weeks. And Brock Purdy, I'm not going to bash him after one poor game, but he did not look stellar up against Brian Flores and the Minnesota Vikings. So let's just do this, Stu, real quickly. Because I don't think there's not another team still outside of those 3 in the NFC that you could actually envision going to the Super Bowl this year. Like, hey, Seattle's off to a 2-0 start. I get Kyler Murray looked great last weekend. They're 1-1. The Saints 2-0. Tampa's a good team. They're 2-0. Minnesota's 2. The Packers 1-1, but who knows when Love's coming back? No one's going to believe in the Cowboys, nor should they. There's not another team in the NFC that you could make a case to go to the Super Bowl, right? Outside of the Eagles, the Lions, and the 49ers, even with all these concerns. Correct, Amundo?
I could see the Packers.
You can.
If Jordan Love's healthy, I could see the Packers.
Okay.
That's probably the only one.
So let's rank those 4 teams then. In terms of your confidence meter to get to the Super Bowl, those 4 teams, Eagles, the Detroit Lions, the 49ers, and the Packers. Who would be 4? Who would be 1? 4 least amount of confidence, 1 the most confidence in.
I'll go 4 Lions.
Ooh, really?
Yeah.
Even though they were in an NFC Championship game last year?
I just don't like what I've seen from them so far, and I just think a lot of people have fallen in love with them, and I think that's overrated them a tiny bit in terms of being like a Super Bowl contender.
Okay.
I think they're a playoff team. I think they're a good team. I just don't. And Jared Goff, I think of those quarterbacks, I think I have the least confidence in him.
Okay, so you put the Lions in at 4.
4. I'll go Packers 3.
Okay.
And then it's between the Eagles and 49ers. I'll go. Oh, this is tough. I'll go Eagles 2 and then 49ers 1. I think the 49ers are still the team that, again, they're going to have to be healthy. They're going to have to get Debo and McCaffrey healthy. It didn't look great against the Vikings on Sunday, but I still think the 49ers are the most likely team in the NFC to make the Super Bowl.
You're still right. It's the 49ers are 1. I'm not saying they're definitely going to get there, but they're the team I have the most confidence in because I'll just take you back to last year. Remember when the 49ers lost 3 in a row to Cleveland, Minnesota, and Cincinnati? We all thought the world was ending. Oh, it's panic time in the Bay Area. They ended up losing 2 games down the stretch, Baltimore and the Rams. They started Sam Darnold the last game of the year up against the Rams. So they basically lost 1 game down the stretch, and they got to the Super Bowl where they had a 10-point lead. And in that stretch, there were injuries that happened with that team. So I think they're just going through their injuries now. I guess the saving grace, and it could be a lingering problem with McCaffrey, but they've showed that they could plug in Jordan Mason. And even though you'd rather have Christian McCaffrey, Mason can be good enough to still be a back on a team that wins a Super Bowl. And I know people may say, oh, Zach, that's crazy. Well, look at the last 10 Super Bowl champions. Eagles running back by committee, Chiefs running back by committee, Patriots running back by committee, Bucks running back by committee. So I'm not trying to undermine the importance and discredit the importance of McCaffrey. He's maybe the best non-quarterback in the NFL on the offense side of the ball. You can make that case. But at his position, you could plug in guys and still get good enough production where if your quarterback is all that and you have 2 good wide receivers in a Debo and an Ayuk and a solid tight end in Kittle, where you could find a way to survive the injury of a Christian McCaffrey. But the 49ers are still 1 because they're still the most complete team. And the conversation is not to win the Super Bowl. It's just to get there in the NFC. So I would say the 49ers are 1. In at number 2, oh boy. This is where it gets tricky. I'm going to say it's the Lions. Now, I have some trust issues with Jared Goff, but Goff has been to 2 NFC Championship games, lost 1 in Detroit, and then won 1 with the Rams, even though everyone will tell you the Saints got screwed in that game. But Breeze did throw a pick in overtime, and then Goff found a way to set up the game-winning field goal. So I'd put the Lions in at 2. The Eagles are 3. The Eagles beat the Packers, so I have to put the Packers in at 4. But the Eagles are 3. But you know what? If you tell me there's a rematch at the end of the year, the Eagles and the Packers, can the Packers walk into Lincoln Financial Field and walk out with the victory? Absolutely. They absolutely can. I look at the Eagles, that it factor is a big concern. Because even when they were 10-1 last year, Stu, it was ugly. I know, hey, Stu, I'm talking to you. You would die to have a 10-1 football team.
I would, yes, yes.
You would sacrifice ever watching another soccer game again if it means that the Raiders start off the year 10-1, right? What are you watching soccer over there? What are you watching?
I was. It's over now. It ended
Who won?
Liverpool won. I was happy with that, so that was a nice little gift for me.
You would give up rooting for Liverpool to be 10-1, right? 10-1 with the Raiders?
That'd be nice. I don't know if I'd go that far.
Wow.
I don't know if I'm giving Liverpool
You became a soccer fan, 4 years ago?
5 years ago, yeah.
5 years ago.
Yeah.
So that's a quick little hobby. The Raiders have been your hobby. You
way
love
too
for your.
long.
They've been a religion for you. It's like believing
some
in
religion.
Satan, though.
Yeah.
So, like 10-1, even though there were signs of concern with the Eagles, and then you win one game down the stretch and you snatch defeat from the jaws of victory last night. It's like one of those games where it's okay. The Eagles are good. You'll be able to put lipstick on the pig to try to make it attractive, but down to the core, it's still a pig. That's what the Eagles are. The Eagles are lipstick on a pig right now. You can make the pig look decent, but ultimately you know what it's going to be at the end of the year. So yeah, that's how I'd rank those NFC teams. If you say, okay, if Stu tells me the 49ers, Lions, Eagles, and Packers are the only 4 teams that could go to the Super Bowl in the NFC, I would say the Niners are 1, Lions are 2, Eagles are 3, Packers are 4. Can I tell you, though, who I will adopt in the NFC? I don't think they're going to get to the Super Bowl, but I would love to see this team get to the Super Bowl. It's Tampa Bay. I love that defense. Todd Bowles is a bore at the podium, but he's a Temple guy. And then Baker Mayfield, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin. I love that trio. I don't think the Bucs get there. I think the Bucs ceiling maybe at most is getting to an NFC championship game, but that would be fun. Really fun. May not have fun nationally, but I think it would be fun for me if the Bucs get to a Super Bowl. I would enjoy that personally. All righty, who's the team in the NFC that you have the most confidence with in terms of the big 3, Lions, Eagles, and 49ers to get to the Super Bowl? And out of those big 3, who's the team that you're most concerned about? For me, it's the Philadelphia Eagles. 855-212-4227 is the team I'm most concerned about. And then the team that I'm most confident in out of those big 3 are the San Francisco 49ers. Is Brian Daboll on the hot seat? We'll discuss next.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. 1 minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. "45 seconds remaining. "30 seconds remaining. "15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
The fun continues on the Infinity Sports Network.
You know, I said this about the Giants. It is the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network before the season started, which is not ancient history. It's only 2 weeks ago, folks, as we're entering week 3, and that's going to get kicked off on Thursday. I'm going everywhere this week. Last night, I was in Philadelphia as I got to see the Philadelphia Eagles blow a game in just despicable fashion to the Atlanta Falcons. Tonight, I'm going to Citi Field, see my Metsies in a wild card push as the Mets are going up against the Washington Nationals. Thursday, I'm going to MetLife Stadium. I'll be wearing my Andre Tippett jersey. I think that's what I'm going to go with. Little Andre Tippett jersey as the Patriots are going to try to be competitive with the Jets. Oh, Stu, let me tell you. I now know what it's like to be a losing football fan. I now know what it's like. This is my Super Bowl for the Patriots. We used to win actual Super Bowls. Lombardi trophies, 6 of them, with the great Tom Brady and Bill Belichick. I don't know. I'm not going to say this. I was going to say, I don't know if I've ever been more fired up in my life. That would be really lame. Some of the games I've been to. But I am actually jacked up Thursday. And this is the sign of a losing football fan now, where I'm trying to already envision and think that there's a way that the Patriots are going to win, and I have no reason to be confident, but I'm walking into that stadium Thursday night confident, and I think the Patriots are going to be in the game in the fourth quarter. There's a chance that they're going to win this game outright, and Ramondre Stevenson's going to run, and they're going to embarrass that Jets run defense that needs Hassan Reddick to come on back so they get actually some pressure on the quarterback. And even though I should have no confidence that Jacoby Brissett's going to beat Aaron Rodgers, and the Patriots defense, which is a solid unit, is going to be able to make a big stop in the fourth quarter. But I'm now looking at week 3. Week 3 used to be like, oh, let's even, who cares if the Patriots lose early on in the season?
Stay healthy.
Just stay healthy. Just get through it. Just make sure that you get a home playoff game. That's all I needed was a home playoff game. And you knew they would be in the AFC Championship game. But now it's like, okay, week 3, big game. Big game. This is my Super Bowl on Thursday night. The Patriots aren't going anywhere this year. Like a good season for them, like a great season for them would be 7 wins. But now this is my Super Bowl on Thursday night. And that's where my football fandom is now at. I'm sure you can relate with the Raiders. You've had a lot of week 3 Super Bowls.
A lot of early season Super Bowls, and when you get to see your team play, it means everything, even when they're not very good.
Do you know how obnoxious I'm going to be? And I'm not usually an obnoxious football fan. I'm not someone that goes to games and looks to start a fight or starts yelling at people in Jets uniforms or the opposition if for example, my team wins. I'm not usually like that. I'm a respectful football fan. I root for my team, and if they lose, they lose. You take your lumps, you take your ball, and you go home. But if the Patriots win on Thursday night, Oh, your boy walking out of that stadium. I won't be walking. I'll be doing like the flying motion. I'll be flying around like a jet, and I'll just be looking at every Jet fan going, Jets, suck, suck, suck. That's what I'll be saying to Jets fans on Thursday night. And you know what? I would not fault the Jet fan if they then pop me right in the mouth as I'm getting ready to get on the NJ Transit back to my New York City apartment. But this is my Super Bowl Thursday. Do I go like face paint? Do I put the eye black on? Eye black on, go to the stadium?
Oh,
Come
man.
on, we're going to war.
You are all in for this game. I
We're
love
going
it.
to war. Oh, I'm jacked up. It's funny. My standard for this football team was like number 1 overall pick when the season started. They then stunned the Cincinnati Bengals. And then week 2, they should have won the game up against the Seahawks. Gerard Mayo, could we stop coaching like it's 1945? It's 4th and 1. Don't be Sirianni like a dope and go for it on 4th and 3, 4th and 4. But when you're in overtime and you give the ball back to the other team, all they need is a field goal. You go for it on 4th and 1. But I am starting to have some confidence with this team where I don't think they're going to be any good, but I at least know they're going to be watchable this year. Like you could start to see signs, even though their offense needs so much work done. The offensive line, they can't pass protect. Like Stu, I'm sure, I know the Raiders have a good pass rush with Christian Wilkins and Max Crosby. I'm sure you've had some really bad pass rushers. Like I'm sure there's guys that you're like, oh my God, this guy can't pass rush to save his life. I think you could send like a JV9 edge rusher, a junior varsity 9th grader up against this Patriots offensive line. They could find a way to get to the quarterback. So that's my concern with the Jets, but the Jets right now don't have a pass rush. So in a weird way, I'm confident. I'm confident about this game. I probably should have no confidence. But anywho, so I'm going to the Pat Jet game Thursday, and then Friday, I'm going to Phillies-Mets at Citi Field for the final Mets homestand of the year. So this is a big sports week for you, boy. But anywho, let's get to the negative side of this show. And that's right now, if I had to ask you, I'm looking at the odds right in front of me. The next NFL head coach to get fired. Who do you think has the highest odds right now? Next coach to get fired.
It's probably Brian Daboll, I think.
At plus 250. Do you think you can name the top 5 in terms of the highest odds? Daboll is at plus 250. I think one of these names you will not get because of the start they got off to. And I think the other name you won't get because he's perceived to be a good coach, but he's off to a horrible start this season. So I think there's 4 more names. You said Daboll 1. I think 2 names are going to be tough for you to get.
Is Mike McCarthy on there?
He is.
Okay.
Mike McCarthy was not one of the 2 names I thought you wouldn't get. Mike McCarthy's in 3rd, so he is in 3rd at plus 600.
Okay. What about Canales just because of how bad they are? I know it's year 1, but it's the Panthers and Tepper. That's
Dave Canales, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8,
okay, so no.
9, 10th at plus 2,000. So you got Daboll at plus 250, McCarthy at plus 600.
What about Bob Saleh?
Bob Saleh. Who calls him Bob
Rome
Saleh?
calls him Bob Saleh.
Oh, does he?
Yeah, he does.
Oh. Jim could do whatever he wants. Yes, Robert Saleh is in at 4th at plus 1,200. There's another coach who's at plus 1,200 right now, and that would be tied for those final 2 spots. So you got Daboll, you got McCarthy, you got Saleh. Can you get the other 2?
Doug Peterson.
That's a name I didn't think you were going to get. Dougie P is at plus 400. So he's the 2nd highest odds. Daboll 1, plus 250. Peterson 2, plus 400. Plus 600 in a 3rd is Mike McCarthy. Plus 1,200 is Robert Saleh. Who's the other coach at plus 1,200?
Eberflus.
It's a good name. He's at plus 1,600, though. You're not going to get this guy because it's such an obscure name, number 1, but also his team's off to a good start. It's a man that you know very well.
Is that Dennis Allen?
Mm-hmm.
Really?
Right now, Dennis Allen is at plus 1,200. 5th highest odds to get fired, which is kind of crazy. And this is via OddsShark. It's kind of crazy because you would think okay, before the year, even though Mickey Loomis is talking about how he's like the next Bill Belichick, you would think that after a 2-0 start and they've blown out teams that he would not be in at number 5 right now. You would think that would be the case.
That's very surprising to me, yes.
You want to know who's in at 6?
Who we got?
Ooh, you ain't going to like this one. Antonio Pierce.
No.
Stefanski also right behind him at plus 1,400. I'll give you the top 10. Daboll, Peterson, McCarthy, Saleh, Allen, Pierce, Stefanski, Eberflus, Zach Taylor, Dave Canales. That's the top 10.
They're not firing Pierce.
No.
It's no way.
If Al was still alive,
yes,
potentially.
Different. Very different.
With Mark running the team? No, I would not think so. By the way, getting back to the Patriot-Jet game I'm going to on Thursday, since you just brought up, we brought up the Davis family. If the Patriots win Thursday night against the Jets, remember when Gruden with the Raiders beat the Chiefs and he had the bus driver drive the lap around and honk his horn?
Oh, yeah.
Maybe I buy a bus and I take a victory lap around MetLife Stadium. Honk, honk. How about that, Jet fans? Where's Fireman Ed? Shut your mouth. Go quit on the team again, you phony fan. Remember when he retired? Oh, I'm retiring. The Patriots beat up on the Jets so bad, I'm retiring. But out of those coaches, who's the first coach to get fired? See, for Daboll, I said it just can't get embarrassing. Through the first 2 weeks, I thought they'd be bad, but it's been embarrassing. Week 1, you just got absolutely just dominated by the Minnesota Vikings. And then week 2, you walk into a game where your kicker's banged up and you had no backup kicker option when your kicker does get hurt again. So I don't think Mara fires Daboll in season. I don't. But who's the coach, Stu? You know what? I'm going to say in-season firing, if you made me take odds right now on who's the most likely coach to get fired, it would actually be Saleh. Because the Jets, there's going to be a lot of public pressure. If they lose this game to New England, I'm not saying he gets fired after week 3, but I think there's going to be a lot of public pressure from Jet fans on Robert Saleh. Like, I don't think McCarthy's getting fired in season. Jerry usually waits till the contract runs out anyway, and it runs out at the end of the year. He did that with Jason Garrett. Peterson, I think there's a chance. But the Jaguars, like, you just extended Trevor Lawrence. In season, that's a rush. Daboll, I don't think gets fired in season. Allen stop. Antonio Pierce stop. Stefanski stop. Eberflus, maybe at the end of the year, but not in season. Zach Taylor, like, if that Bengals team gets off to, I know they're 0-2. I know he got them to a Super Bowl. I don't think he gets fired in season, though. I don't. What about Sirianni? You know what's crazy on this list? Where do you think Sirianni is? Just wondering.
I mean, if he's not top 10, he has to be right outside. You would think he's like 12th or 13th.
He's 12th. 12th. Sean Payton is in front of him. I don't believe in Sean anymore in Denver, but how do you put Sirianni? These odds suck. They really do. And I know Sirianni's a puppet in Philadelphia, but geez, how is he not in the top 5 right now? How many coaches, if you just had to throw out a number and I'll get to the number. How many coaches get fired either during the season or after the season? How many new coaching hires are we going to have to get to in this offseason? Just throw out a number.
I'd say 6.
6. Okay. If I had to give you 6, McCarthy gone, Saleh gone, Doug Peterson gone, Zach Taylor, if they missed the playoffs, gone. That's 4. Sirianni gone. It's tough to get one more name in there.
Daboll, Eberflus.
Did I not say Eberflus?
I don't believe you did.
Okay. So Peterson gone. I think the 6, right?
Yes.
Peterson gone, McCarthy gone, Saleh gone, Eberflus gone, Taylor gone, and then Sirianni gone. Would be the 6 that I would say right now. And people are gonna say, "What about Daboll?" I think it could be Daboll. I think, but I really do believe that Mara wants to continue with this regime because especially how many changes they've had to make. All right, this is Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. Do you think, let me ask Ack this, because he's our media veteran here. That's what they just say when you're old.
I was going to say, it's a nice code word. Thank you.
Well, don't worry. When I got promoted to this time slot, they were, at the time when we were CBS Sports Radio, like, CBS Sports Radio veteran Zach Gelb will now anchor the afternoons. I'm like, I'm not that old.
And now Pat Boyle is the leading contender to take over this spot.
No.
Vegas odds have him.
Yeah.
They're lining up. But
put it this way.
Yes.
There's some coaches on this list that should be worried. I ain't worried about that. All right? Put the odds at whatever you want.
All right, you know.
Press conference etiquette. Week 2, Pat Leonard, who I like, asked Brian Daboll about his job status and if he's worried about it. Do you think that was too premature? Do you have a problem with that question being asked in week 2?
I don't have a problem with the question being asked, but I think if you're Brian Daboll, you're like, really? It's week 2. So it's one of those things. It's not that I don't want to pick a side, but I think that both sides are okay in their. I think he was fine to ask it. I think he was fine to have that reaction. But, you know, in general, though, Brian Daboll's press conferences have gotten shorter and shorter. They're Belichickian.
Which is a problem.
Yeah.
Because a lot of guys that are coaches from the Belichick tree, what really does them in is they think they're Belichick, but they don't have the resume or even a fraction of the resume.
They don't have the pedigree. So, I mean, I just would go through it last year, and I'm saying, geez, Brian Daboll's got to give you a little something here. I mean, I understand you don't want to give away state secrets, but there's a way to do it, and there's a way not to do it. And the way that he's not doing it right now doesn't help the fact that he's not winning.
Here's what I'll say. I was not expecting the question to happen in week 2. I do not have a problem with the question being asked.
It is a little premature, but I'm fine with it being asked.
I thought the bigger problem was how Daboll handled it.
Yeah, you could do. I mean,
just say, hey,
fine.
I'm not answering that question. He stared down Pat Leonard.
Yeah,
like, don't be a douche in that spot.
Like that's where he doesn't come off well, because it's one of those things like
it's Patricia-like.
I wouldn't even say it's Patricia-like, but number one, it's almost as if he's trying to intimidate somebody. Number 2 is again, it's premature, but it's a legitimate question. And you can just say, I'm not worried about it, just as I wasn't last year. It's not a good start, but it's only 2 weeks in. Let's, I think you can handle it. And if you handle it well, you turn it around. People, I think, respect that.
Here's what I say. You asked me the question. Hey, Coach Daboll, are you concerned about your job status? I'm concerned on winning a football game next week. I'm not concerned about my future.
Fair, absolutely.
And then you could even humanize yourself, because I know if I don't start winning games soon, I know how this league works.
Sure.
And you give a little bit to the media, and that's it.
Sure.
When you basically just say, I'm not concerned about it, okay, the way he answered it was fine, but then you look at him.
Yeah,
at Pat Leonard and stare him down, you make it more of a story than what
there could be something between those two also. A
little friction.
Pesky
reporter.
Maybe.
Pesky Pat.
You just never know. I mean, he could have handled it like you handled the Pat Boyle query.
Oh, so. Yeah. Please.
But yeah,
I'm not concerned about that one.
When you're the head coach, I don't think you can have the response that Brian Daboll had.
Yeah, no, you're not wrong on that. All right, it is Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. We'll do a news brief next. Update time first. Here he is, the Ackman, Rich Ackerman.
Infinity Sports Network Sports Flash.
It's been nice working with you. The Dolphins aren't taking any chances with Tua Tagovailoa, reportedly placing him on injured reserve to give him time to recover from his third concussion in less than 2 years. The normally durable DeForest Buckner goes on injured reserve with a sprained ankle. Russell Wilson's Steelers debut will have to wait another week, it looks like, as Mike Tomlin said they're preparing for Justin Fields to start once again with the Steelers at 2-0. The Chiefs have brought back a familiar face, reportedly signing former third-round pick Kareem Hunt to their practice squad, while Lawrence Guy has a new home with the veteran defensive lineman signing with the Bengals. Zach Wheeler goes for his 16th win tonight when the Phillies meet the Brewers in Milwaukee in a battle of division leaders. Milwaukee wraps up the NL Central with a win tonight and a loss by the Cubs. The Mets are a game in front of the Braves for the final wild card in the National League. New York eked out a 2-1 10-inning victory over Washington last night. The Braves split the last 4 with the Dodgers. They're in Cincinnati after dropping the series finale. And the D-backs hold the second wild card, but just a game up on the Mets. They open a series against the Rockies. I'm Rich Ackerman.
This is the Infinity Sports Network. Check out our new and improved website at infinitysportsnet.com. That's infinitysportsnet.com.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Five seconds remaining. Seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Hey, this is Howie. And this is Nick. From the Backstreet Boys. And you're listening to the Zach Gelb Show. And guess what? Zach is back. All right.
He's live. He's nationwide. This is the Zach Gelb Show.
All right, it's time to update you on some of the biggest stories of the day with some audio. We get to a news brief right now.
Time for your daily news brief. We get you caught up on the rumors, reports, and reconnaissance from the day in sports.
Saquon Barkley, yikes. Catch the ball, the Eagles win the game. Here is Saquon on the drop pass.
Dropped the ball. Let my team know today. Shouldn't have put the defense in that position. Made that catch, game's over. Relax, went back to my old habits, and just got to go back and get back to work.
Yeah, it took it on the chin. That's what you got to do, so that is admirable. But, yeah, you got to catch the football. Here is Jalen Hurts on the Barkley drop pass.
I trust him every day of the week to make a play, just like everybody else. And so we'll be better from it.
You know what we should do? Hurts has kind of turned into Belichick. I used to have Hickey play me some audio of Belichick, and I would have to guess if it's after a win or a loss, and it was so tough to do. We should do that for Jalen Hurts, because he sounds miserable when they win, and he sounds miserable when they lose, and you have no difference between the two. Here is Nick Sirianni in the failed decision in the loss to Atlanta Falcons.
That's why I'm sitting in this seat, the head coaching seat. Like, I got to be ready for the consequences of whether it works or whether it doesn't work. And in that scenario, first off, obviously it didn't work. So obviously I'm going to second guess myself in those scenarios that it doesn't. Same thing on the 3rd and 3. It was an incomplete pass. So sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't work. And all I can do is go back and review those and say, did I like what we did here? Would we do it again, or would we change directions next time? Everything's thought out of what we want to do, but that's this game of football. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, and in those cases it didn't, and so I got to rethink it.
I wonder what Nick would have done if he was calling the play, because the play was called by Kellen Moore. That's what I'm fascinated by. You could say, I sit in this chair, I got to answer the questions, all that stuff. Would you have thrown the ball in that spot, or would you have elected to run the football? That would have been my question to Nick Sirianni. He probably doesn't answer it last night, but that's what I would be fascinated by, because it was Kellen Moore's decision, and it's not as if, okay, this is, as he had earlier in the game, 4th down, so Kellen, all right, you're going to call the 4th down play, but we're going to go for it. Like you're telling the coach what we're going to do. In this case, it's 3rd down. Kellen Moore's calling the play how he wants and how he seems fit on 3rd down, but the play would have worked if Saquon Barkley would have just caught the ball. Here is Eli Manning, Peyton Manning, and Matt Ryan on the ESPN Manning cast reacting to the Saquon Barkley drop pass.
Early on play. No! Ooh. Wow. Ooh. They had it. He listened. Jalen watched what Matt Ryan said. He said, I'm running that play again. I'm going to give him the perfect throw. Front shoulder, like Matt said, get it out in front. Wow. That's why you don't throw, though. That's why you don't throw. It is why you don't throw, but, it was a perfect call.
Yeah, like Matt Ryan, he liked the call. Saquon Barkley's got to catch the ball. And Peyton, I don't think it's why you don't throw the ball. You expect someone, when it's wide open, to catch the ball when he's Saquon Barkley and he's getting paid a pretty penny to do so. Brian Callahan has been pretty vocal, and you could see it visibly on the sidelines, upset with Will Levis. Here is Brian Callahan on yelling at Will Levis again during the game.
I'm generally pretty composed. I think you guys have seen that for the most part. That one set me off. And I'm human like everybody else. I have blackout moments where I'll lose my mind. I try not to. I try my best to keep it together. But that one was hard for me to watch in the moment. And yeah, I got to have a little bit better awareness that there's cameras on me, and I'm not up in the box yelling at anybody. I'm right there in the front of everything, and the cameras are pointed right at me. So probably a little bit of a lesson learned for me in that regard. Don't regret my feelings about it, but yeah, I'm sure there's some things I could probably do better when it comes to that.
I'm not saying Tennessee's a great team, but they've put Will Levis in a position to succeed. And they're getting that answer right now through the first 2 games. He's not that dude. Maybe he can be that dude, But usually I wouldn't be fine with Brian Callahan going the way about it that he is. But when you're making these egregious errors that I don't care if you're a young quarterback or an old quarterback, you can't make them, I think you have every right to flip out. But when Mason Rudolph's like the backup option, it's not as if I think Will Levis, he'll lose his job eventually, but I don't think he's going to lose it right now. All right, I've been waiting all day to hear this. Here is Christopher Mad Dog Russo trying to pronounce Jackson Smith-Njigba's name. This is on his SiriusXM radio show.
The Seahawks blocked a 48-yard field goal with 4 minutes left, which would have put the Pats up 6. That was a big play in this game. Smith played well, and his receivers, Metcalf caught 10, Jackson Smith-Njigba, the kid from Ohio State, he caught 12 more.
Was he combining like David Njoku and Jackson Smith-Njigba? Play that for me one more time. That's amazing.
Jackson Smith-Njigba, the kid from Ohio State, he caught 12 more.
One more time?
Jackson Smith-Njigba, the kid from Ohio State, he caught 12 more.
Oh, my goodness gracious. Come on, dog. Say something funny. Say something funny. Come on, Christopher. How are you today? Oh, my goodness gracious. That's awesome. Last one. Lane Kiffin calling out Wake Forest for backing out of their home-and-home deal.
Really a very abnormal thing for Wake to do. So I put that in neutral words. You usually don't do that a year, in the season before. It's hard. There's not people to play. So it's why you do scheduling in advance and you make deals and you go and play there and they come back. And, that was really not something, I would just say that's rarely ever done. I've never really heard of doing it, and it really puts us at a big disadvantage, is what it is. Obviously wasn't appreciated very much, them put us in that situation. And, we got to go find somebody, and most people are all scheduled up, and even when you find them, then you got to go pay them. So kind of unwritten rule not to do that, actually.
I love Lane Kiffin when he's pissed off because he's kind of like Jalen Hurts, where it's one tone. And even when he's happy, he sounds pissed off. And when he's annoyed, he doesn't you can't even tell if it's in a good thing or a bad thing in terms of Lane Kiffin. But I enjoy when he is just really upset and he's just taking shots at teams. It's like, come on, it's poor little Wake Forest. They pulled out, okay, I get it. But Kiffin, he gets riled up over that one. There's no doubt about it. Good show today. Big thanks to Stu. Big thanks to Mike. Big thanks to each and every one of you. We'll do it all again tomorrow on a Wednesday edition of the Zach Gelb Show at 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific. We out. Bye-bye. Peace.
You're in a 5-minute